Good morning. This is the Oskar Quentin Show, where I debate politics and related things with strangers on TikTok Live. The show is also on YouTube Live. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, if you're watching the VOD, the podcast version of this show, you can find a pinned comment that'll tell you when the first call is, and some more detailed timestamps in the description that'll tell you how the rest of the episode goes. Announcements today? What else should I say? Oh, I did want to mention just like once at the beginning for the YouTube people, I will read your donation messages on the show if they come in later. I know people who watch the VOD or don't get to participate in the live show as much, but if you make a donation and you want your message read, it will get read on the episode that gets posted the day after you make the donation if I'm not live. Just wanted to mention that. I don't usually put the financial stuff right up at the front, but just wanted to put that out there. Who do we have? We've got the mods showing up. Who's first today? Let the Wookieean says first right after Nmerks says ahoy. So sorry, not so much. Yeah, I want to get right into it today. We've got, the Freedom 250 thing, this weird celebration where instead of, I'm okay with celebrating the country's 250th birthday. I think my audience knows that obviously I would prefer to celebrate it under better circumstances for democracy, but it is just this like weird, it feels very like commercial and unpatriotic, all this Trump-centric stuff. But I do find it hilarious. I do find it very, very fucking funny that the turnout in DC is terrible. Like these empty crowds are hilarious. The idea that they put up this much production to have a few people show up. I'm a musician. I have played a song I wrote to a crowd of 3 people and been thankful for the one of them that isn't somebody I invited to that open mic. Like, I get it, but when you put up a big production for the entire country and you can't get people to show up, I'm sure it'll be busier this weekend. I'm sure that's the defense the Chuds will give. But like, again, it should be exciting. People should be excited to go participate with something like that. And the fact that they just can't even bring crowds out for live music in DC is insane. And I will say, I'm very sad that I'm not there. I would love to be in DC, but we haven't quite figured out travel. I've got some staff working for the show now to alleviate workload for me. And I was actually just going through yesterday, looking at some of the things I'd need to be able to bring the show mobile, because that is the plan. I want to be able to go to these different things. I wanted to go to Delaney Hall. I wanted to be in DC. But anyway, linktree in the bio if you want to keep the show getting better. My needs are met. We're trying to make the Oskar Quentin Show better. That's the plan going forward. So just wanted to say a little bit at the beginning about that. We're going to talk to a green check mark, and we're going to see if he's a green check mark or a red flag, as most of my callers are. How old are you?
Liberal.
Oh, man, it's such a shame the way that like little kids, like when I was a kid, I'm 30. When I was little, when I was young, it was still like in vogue to call things gay as an insult or whatever. And to hear liberal, like a political ideology, used in that sort of way, like I wouldn't even want children saying that about Republicans, about conservatives, about MAGA. Like it would break my heart just as much to hear a voice that young belittling the ideology that I so oppose, just because it's so devastating to me that like the culture wars of politics has permeated our youth. I was a high school teacher until very recently, and I worked really hard not to engage with politics with my students, which is obviously the case for any educator in a K-12 situation. You got to keep that sterile academic environment to focus on them prospering instead of them being on your team. That's so much more important. It's kind of like one of the sacred things about teaching. But I was a high school teacher during Metro Surge, so I was doing security as part of my job. I was a substitute teacher, and I also worked in the transportation department, so I spent a lot of time bodyguarding students who were being moved to their work-study programs or getting to and from school in the morning and the afternoon. And I worried for those months that I'd get asked by one of the students I was protecting about what I was doing. Because how do you, as a high school teacher who's not supposed to engage with politics with your students, answer a question like, hey, do you really think it's important for you to be protecting me from ICE right now? Or, wow, isn't it crazy that we closed the schools for a few weeks because everybody was so afraid of children being harmed by federal agents? It didn't happen. That conversation never happened with any of my students, but I worried about it. And I worried about it so much. I walked into HR one day and I said, like, hey, like, what the fuck am I supposed to do if a kid asks me about Metro Surge or ICE or Bovino or Trump or all this stuff that's happening? And they didn't have a good answer for me, because it's pretty unprecedented for teachers to need to worry about that type of stuff. Like, we can talk about COVID with kids because it's an external threat that we're all trying to get, away from. in the context of a few years ago when there were shutdowns for that. But it really is unprecedented to say, oh, well, we closed school to protect you from the federal government. We hired extra staff to literally be your bodyguards walking down the street because of the federal government. Oscar's got his head on a swivel in case somebody comes and tries to fucking snatch you. I don't know. It makes me, it's pretty grim, you know, being a kid right now, I think, in this political climate, in this culture where these sorts of things are thrown away in that, you know, thrown around in the way that little kid called in and threw them around. So I don't know. I think about that. I reflect on that a lot as an educator. Yeah. I let the troll get to me. Because the youth are in danger, man. COVID was bad for kids because it was bad for kids' education because safety comes first. Education is important, but safety first does take precedence over that, which is why we closed schools and other things for COVID. And the fact that we had to do that to protect kids from the federal government for not as long, but attendance was really bad leading up to the period where we had schools closed here in Minneapolis because of ICE. And then it was still bad for a long time after that, and it just never really recovered. And that's the sort of thing that it really devastates me that the people I talk to on this show aren't able to consider. Like, they just don't value a cost to society in any meaningful way. Like, even if you're happy with the immigration and customs enforcement that was accomplished by having Metro Surge in Minnesota, like, if you're just unwilling to weigh the fact that it was miserable for people who lived here, kids missed school because of it, people were injured, children went to the hospital for inhaling tear gas because they tear gassed a lot of residential neighborhoods. Like, if you can't weigh that stuff, if we can't have a reasonable conversation about whether or not anything that was accomplished by ICE was worth it in consideration of that, like, you don't have a heart, you know? I don't think you believe in the preamble of the Constitution where it says that the government exists to promote the public welfare. I don't think you're a patriot if you can't think about it that way. We're going to talk to CroomReaper, CROOM Reaper, one word, capital R. How old are you?
32. You just spun that in the most dishonest fucking way that I've ever heard somebody say something.
Let's go with dishonest. What did I say that was dishonest?
Okay, so it was Minnesota that decided to allow that kind of behavior.
What did the kids do?
Protesters. Huh?
I talked about some really negative outcomes for children. What did they do?
The kids? I mean, the fact that people were bringing kids to protest, the fact that schools were being let out. Okay, so
I don't think
Oscar,
people should bring kids to these sorts of...
Just to show you how dishonest you are.
This is ding-a-ling, by the way. I recognize your voice. Wow. Ding-a-ling guy. Just pointing it out to my audience. You're a regular caller. You're a regular caller.
It's just funny to hear what kind of bullcrap comes in and how you guys spin shit. So it's crazy how you guys get to these conclusions. Okay, how many illegal aliens were deported from Florida compared to Minnesota?
There are way more illegal immigrants in Florida than Minnesota. There's like only 130,000.
Okay, we're more deported in Florida than Minnesota.
Over what period? Over the course of Metro Surge? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, over this course of deportation, even when they were in Minnesota, there was more ICE agents in Florida than in Minnesota. So the fact is, nothing like this happened in Florida. There was way more deportations. Local law enforcement worked with ICE to catch the people that they wanted to catch. We didn't have issues like this. There was no kids missing school because of ICE.
They closed schools. Wait, hold on. They closed the schools here. Dude.
Yeah, because of the protests, because Minnesota was unsafe, because Minnesota...
You're making claims that have no backing. What about the protests made kids unsafe at school? The thing that made kids unsafe at school was ICE agents ambushing kids as they came to and from school, attacking their parents.
Attacking their parents?
Yes.
You mean getting illegal immigrants out of the country, which democracy wanted, the people voted for? Are you talking about that? Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not illegal.
Dude, why are you yelling?
If you're illegal,
this isn't a conversation, dude.
No, because you're
keep moving
lying.
On to other stuff. What am I lying about? What did I say that wasn't factually true? What is your argument?
If you're here in this country illegally, do you get deported? Yes or no?
Is that the consequence legally?
Is that one of the consequences legally?
Yes, I disagree with that policy personally.
So then shut the fuck up about people getting deported, because if you're in this country illegally, the U.S. law says you can get deported. It doesn't matter. Okay, so if I break a fucking law as a parent and I'm taking my kids to school,
I don't do very often on my show, which is I'm going to mute Splinter, and I'm just going to say I'm going to mute you. I don't mute people very often on my show. I'm just going to say that based on the spiel I started the show with today, I don't have anything that I need to say because he's demonstrating exactly what I was talking about, how people don't have a heart about these issues. So I'm actually not going to engage with him at all. I'm not going to engage with him at all. I'm just going to let him have the floor until I decide it's time to kick him, because I don't think it's worth engaging with him, and I think he's probably going to be banned from the show forever.
Because you're running.
Behaving in this way. So you can have the floor for as long as you want. I'm going to sit back. I might go grab some coffee. Forgot to let's unmute him. There. I think I sent you the invitation to unmute. I'm just going to let you have the floor for a minute.
Yeah, so if I break the law as a parent and I'm taking my kid to school, guess what? I go to jail. Oh my Lord, that's so crazy, right? The same thing will happen to an illegal alien, but somehow Oskar here wants to treat people differently because illegal aliens are supposed to be more human than the regular American citizens, right? Oskar wasn't sitting there complaining when all these illegals were sitting there unaliving American citizens. Where was their peace? Where was their right? Huh, Oskar? Oh no, but we're going to stick up for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who beats his wife and sits here and has gone through all these investigations, who was sat there and identified as a gang member, but you know, that's the hell they want to sit here and die on. So you know what, dude, there's no point in even talking to you because you're wrong about everything. You're blaming ICE for situations that happened in Minnesota that the Minnesota government wanted to happen. Tim Walz is a complete liar. He sat there and took glory for the ICE raids and the FBI raids for fraud. And you're sitting here, and he had nothing to do with it. The FBI came out and confirmed. Tim Walz tweeted that he somehow was working with the federal government. Dude, that dude is such a liar. And so is that mayor of that city. I mean, that city, all that stuff with Nick Shirley coming to light, people being arrested, being indicted. Everybody was saying it's fraud. Everybody's picking on the Somalians because they're racist. No, it's because they're committing crimes. And just like the illegal aliens, right?
Lucky Phil said for $2 on Buy Me a Coffee. Excuse me, I'm going to read the donation from one of my donors. Lucky Phil said, Law of the Wild removed him. It's okay. I think he's banned forever. You know, it's just there's no talking to that guy, right? Like Mr. Ding-a-ling. Like I just, you know, it's probably better he's never on the show again. Lucky Phil sent me $2 to say sad state of affairs when telling kids you're protecting the truth could be considered political speech. Well, yeah, that was the difficulty. It was like really hard to avoid political speech around the students I was protecting from ICE agents. How you doing, Law of the Wild? Oh God, is Parker here? Parker, come say hi. Are you in my request queue? I want to talk to Parker instead of that guy. No, the window's too big. I can't scroll. Somebody, one of the mods find him if he's in here. Butt Mustard sent me $5 on YouTube Super Chat to say, please sit silently as long as possible. I want to see how much he likes the sound of his own voice. That was kind of the bit, but Law of the Wild got him out of here. But Law of the Wild's probably on track. Shouldn't let somebody platform so freely like that. Probably not chill. Goblin Bag sent me $5 on YouTube Super Chat to say, don't give this guy time to sit there preaching his weird hate without explaining any reasoning. Dude is a lost bigot. Yeah. That's kind of what I was sitting there thinking. It's like, how long should I let this go on for? But you know, Splinter's only got one strategy, which is to fucking yell. So you know, I let him demonstrate that little 5-minute spiel I gave at the beginning of the episode about how difficult it was to be an educator in Minnesota during Metro Surge, and like how it really breaks my heart that the Chuds can't consider just the community cost, the cost to society of children, you know, missing out on safety and education in their youth. Like, you know, if that sort of thing gets you yelling like that, but that guy comes back on a different account every time, so it's going to be very hard to ban him, which is, you know, a shame. But he's one of the few callers who actually has so specific a cadence. He really stands out against the rest. I always know when I'm talking to that guy. We got 400 people watching on TikTok. Let's see how many people are watching on YouTube. We got 143 people watching on YouTube. They can't call in, but I do appreciate them being here. And I appreciate the mods over there reminding everybody to get liking. But for the 400 people over on TikTok, I assume one of you is somebody who disagrees with me about something. That'd be pretty sick if you would call in and have a conversation. Parker commented something. Am I supposed to see it? Parker can't join. He says he'll join soon. Well, I appreciate you, Parker. Thanks for hopping in. Yeah. Anyway, I wish I had a collar so Parker could, see me work my magic. But Parker's been following a little while, so I think he has seen me how to take calls before. We're going to talk to the letter M. We're going to see if this is an episode of Sesame Street or an episode of the Oskar Quentin Show. The letter M, how old are you?
21.
21. Are you a Trump supporter?
Nah, but since there's no one in the queue, I kind of just want to ask you a quick question type.
So 10 seconds to get your question out, and then I'm going to move on, but I will answer it after I kick you.
All right, I was going to say, you're a self-proclaimed patriot, and I think there are things I love about this country, but I feel like it's the majority of its history has been like imperial, just evil on the largest scale ever. So what do you like about the country, and what makes you a patriot?
I think that if we look at the quality of life that people get to live in the 21st century, America is one of the places on earth where it's pretty decent compared to how it's been in history. We've committed some great evils, and I want to work on those things, and it's not perfect, but I do value the fact that I've had food to eat my entire life and a shelter to sleep in and all of that. And America's doing a pretty decent job at creating those sorts of conditions for people. We just are having some regression with inequity, and you're right, we've been treating the world poorly the entire time. I'd like to address all of that, but I call myself a patriot because I think that the core values that the country is founded on are ones that if we continue to respect, we will continue to make the world better in the ways that I just described, continue to make the country better in the ways that I just described. So I'm a patriot in that sense. I like what it says in the Constitution broadly. I like the way that the Constitution has existed as a foundation for our case precedent that has allowed this system of protection of rights to exist at all. I spent a lot of time talking about that on the show, but yeah, I think the Chuds aren't patriots. I don't think that they can give a definition of patriot that applies to them, and that bothers me. We're going to talk to Jack, and we're going to see if he's a patriot. If he calls himself one or if he acts like one, we'll see. Jack, how old are you?
I'm 26.
26. Are you a Trump supporter?
I am actually an independent, but I did vote for Trump over Kamala Harris.
Okay. I mean, that is. Do you regret that vote?
So, in all honesty, it's kind of mixed because I would have preferred different candidates on both sides. Myself and a lot of people around in my area, we wanted a different Democratic candidate than Kamala. We did not agree with her value.
I agree with a lot of that. I do have to do this at the beginning of the call because there's this thing where it's just really important for me to know whether or not I'm actually talking to somebody who supports Trump, because I certainly can recognize that it's been long enough since the election that voting for him doesn't mean you support him. Do you regret your vote? I want a clear answer to that question.
I would say no as of right now.
Okay, so just I want to make sure you're okay with it, but the way I define it, that makes you a Trump supporter.
Right. As of right now, I would say yes. I enjoy him more than I enjoyed the Biden administration. So yes.
More than you enjoyed. How do you measure? Is that how you determine a president's performance, by like how much you enjoyed the 4 years?
I determine it as, am I better off than I was 4 years ago? As of right now, just because joined the workforce since COVID, been working since. That's how I currently see it. How old did you say you were? I'm 26. So I've been working during, I was in school, and during COVID, I decided to have to work full time just to be able to support everyone. And during the Biden administration, I couldn't afford anything. Gases were ridiculous, housing, inflation, all that stuff. In my area, at least, gas and housing has gone down, and it's a lot more affordable.
Okay, well, so here's a couple problems I have with your perspective on this. One, we're talking about the last few years of your life. Like people's economic circumstances are really just generally tumultuous in their 20s, right? Like I've had some serious ups and downs throughout my 20s.
Right, absolutely.
I just finished my 20s. I don't really blame the president for the fact that I left my wife and had a bunch of shit happen in my life, you realize there's 350 million other people in the country, right?
No, absolutely. I have very mixed views. I mean, I saw in your thing about ICE. You're not a huge fan of them.
Well, let's not move on to ICE. I want to talk about what you just said. Sure. You brought up Trump and Biden, and I feel like you're kind of following the target as you need to determine that it's the president's fault what happened with you. It's Trump's fault if it was good, and it's Biden's fault if it was bad. You listed some of the things that happened during Biden's term that were a result of COVID. You recognize that we did some things, and when I say we, I mean we the people, America,
right?
Trump included. At the end of Trump's first term and at the beginning of Biden's for only term, there were a couple things they did that we knew were going to be very expensive on some other indicators. Like, for example, one you mentioned, inflation. We knew if we send $1,200 to every American, that will stop people from becoming homeless. That will stop kids from being hungry. That is a Band-Aid that will get us to the emergency room as we deal with this emergency of COVID shutting the country down. And when we did that, the economists said, okay, that's sensible. Inflation is going to be really bad bad in 1 or 2 years if we keep this sort of thing up. And we thought, okay, we can deal with some inflation down the road. Biden had a plan for it. Things like the American Rescue Plan and the infrastructure bills and all these things that helped attack inflation and get inflation back down, not quite to a healthy level, but to a much more reasonable level. And then here we have Trump fucking that up. I decided to zoom in on inflation because it's one of the many things you mentioned, but I don't think you're handling sensibly at all the blame game you're playing about economic indicators and the president.
Okay, well, can I ask, what's your opinion on why Kamala was more qualified than Trump? Can I ask
I'm sorry. No, you just said that your opinion of Biden's term is that Biden was bad or that Trump is good because of how it went, and I said a whole bunch about that. I zoomed in on the inflation thing, and then you asked me about Kamala Harris, who we hadn't brought up yet.
Okay, well, I the only reason why I brought it up is because I kind of considered them the same because they were on the same team. I can accept
the argument that the reason you don't like Kamala Harris is because she was going to do roughly the same thing that Biden was going to do. But we were still sitting here talking about what Biden did and what Trump did and how you think the bad things are Biden's fault and the good things are Trump's fault. But I just pointed out to you that you brought up one. I zoomed in on one, which was inflation.
Right.
And I just want to make sure you accept and recognize what I said. Both Trump at the end of his first term and Biden at the beginning of his only term did things that were obvious to anybody who understands the economy were going to cause not just inflation, but unusual inflation. Something
yes,
like a peak of 9%. Okay, so then you're talking about how bad inflation was during Biden's term, but in the paradigm that I just laid out, he just happened to be the one who was president when that negative outcome from the things that both Trump and Biden did to protect the country from the pandemic were, those consequences came about midway through, in the first half or midway through Biden's term. So do you accept that it's not reasonable to blame Biden for the inflation that occurred during his term?
Absolutely. I don't think it was entirely on Biden. I think there was both sides.
But what was his fault? Because he and Trump both did things that we recognized that inflation was a cost. Do you think that we shouldn't have sent the stimulus checks? Do you think that we shouldn't have spent money on things like Operation Warp Speed? Do you think that it was bad to cause that super high inflation?
I think my bigger issue was seeing money go to different places, such as hearing about, I'm not a huge fan of sending so much money to other countries when people like our veterans are homeless. And I think
I'm talking about things that we did domestically to protect Americans from the consequences of the shutdown that was caused by COVID. And you were saying that you walked it back a little bit. You said, it wasn't entirely Biden's fault. I agree. It was partially Trump's fault, but I wouldn't use fault as the appropriate word at all, actually, if I'm being honest, because they both did things that were great, knowing that we would have this big bill to pay down the road by having to fix inflation. And it makes me very sad that Biden doesn't get the credit he deserves. Kamala Harris for passing so much infrastructure in the legislative branch by casting the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. She and him really worked hard to fix these problems that we all agreed were worth having to address to prevent people from becoming homeless. I'm saying that I can look at this whole situation and say, holy shit, they did an amazing job. How are you saying otherwise? Why are you so mad at Biden? What did he do?
I think it's more so I hear I'm a very well, I guess let me just put this on the table. I am not a huge fan of what's the best way to describe it? I'm not a huge fan of how they handled the border, for example. That really frustrated me because there were several people in my state that definitely were
You're pivoting. We can talk about the border. We can talk about foreign aid or whatever other things that we want to talk about. Foreign aid is one where I think that there are some more bipartisan issues to discuss. We're not talking about that. I zoomed in on inflation as the particular metric that you use, but you talked about the circumstances of your life, and I just don't understand what it is that Biden did.
I think yeah, I see where you're getting. And I apologize. I haven't been up on a stage like this ever, so I apologize.
I'm not gonna fault you for having a little bit of the pressure. That's okay. I appreciate you mentioning it.
In all honesty, I just feel like I'm able to afford things a lot better. I guess that's just the easiest way I can describe it now than I could back then.
Well, and I'm not 2 years ago when Biden ended his term, you were 24. You're 26 now. Am I remembering correctly?
Correct.
I would hope for any American that they'd have an easier time affording things when they're 26 than they're 24. Is that happening to one person necessarily a good indicator of how the president's doing?
I think that the economy is a lot better right now than it was 2 years ago. And I'm only saying that because, for example...
So there's a claim. The economists disagree across the board.
Okay. What is different from, I guess in my area,
let's point at some of the things that people point at as positives. One thing that people bring up a lot is that the S&P 500 and the major market indices like that are up And I would point out that they go up constantly. That's what they're designed to do. They've been going up since their inception. If you look at the graph of something like the S&P 500 since it was instituted in something like 1990, 1992, I forget exactly what year, it goes up and down with what's going on in the world, but it goes up. That's why people put their retirements in it. That's the whole purpose of it as an investment vehicle. I could point out that it's going up more slowly during Trump's current term than it did during Biden's term, because he did so many things that boosted the economy in the ways that I actually didn't get to, because I didn't describe exactly how he tackled inflation, but he did some pretty brilliant stuff for the economy. But the important thing is I actually don't give half a shit about what the S&P 500 is, because it has very little to do with what quality of life is like for the average American. And if you're calling yourself the average American who's being affected by economic policies, that's not the sort of thing that you should care about. You should care about inflation. We've covered that. We covered that it was lower at the end of Biden's term than it is now. I think you maybe know a couple of the reasons why it's gone up because of Trump. There's two real big ones that are things that are big hot button issues that he's causing inflation to go up. But there's also things like the jobs report. There's also things like the numerous bankruptcies that are being caused by these economic conditions involving things like tariffs and the other restrictions that Trump is putting on trade. We can measure that. We have reports on that. They're very boring. They don't look good on the news. They're not super fun to put up on the screen and talk about with people on my show even. But the fact of the matter is, if you measure the economy in terms of the things that actually affect everyday people like yourself, jobs reports, bankruptcies of companies, inflations, the ratio of the rate at which inflation is increasing against wages, because in addition to inflation being too high, our wages aren't increasing fast enough. Those two things going together is what makes life hard. That's what has people spending way too much money on rent versus what they make and not having enough left over to buy their needs. And then whatever's left over on top of that is what you're supposed to build a better life for yourself with. And people have a hard time doing that if there isn't much left over. So it's this big math problem about what quality of life is like for people. And those numbers in that equation say that it fucking sucks for everybody on average right now, pretty obviously because of a bunch of things that Trump has done.
Well, I absolutely agree, and I appreciate you for kind of bringing me a little more perspective. I do have to go off here in a second here, and I apologize, but I'm definitely going to follow your channel, and I'm going to kind of do some more research, and I'll try to get back on here in another time. So thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Jack. Yeah, feel free to call back in. I'd love to keep talking.
All right, man. Take care, man.
I'm going to say W's in the chat for Jack. I think he was drinking some Kool-Aid, and I got him to spit some of it out. I wish we could talk longer. Do I have any donations to read? We're a little bit early in the show for me to do the ad read, but I will remind everybody that if you like the show, there are free ways to support it. Like doing the thing that clicking the thing I always forget to put in the corner. Let's get over to my backup account on the backup phone and get Oskar Quentin 2 in the box so you guys can click on the account from which this show will be hosted when this account eventually gets banned for some nonsense. So I'll click on that. Let's put me in there. Ray, I'll get to you in just a second. I do see you there. Let's mute myself so I don't speech jam myself. I struggle with that. There we go. Oskar Quentin 2. Is it going to connect or go away right away? I've been having trouble getting it to stay connected for some reason. Don't know what that is. But anyway, you can go to the link tree in the bio, follow me for free on all the other platforms, or join the Discord if you're interested in becoming a part of the community. That stuff helps out a lot. But it doesn't cost anything. If you have some money that you want to spare, you can send it to my Venmo, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, or Patreon. Because, the show has a budget now. I've got employees. I've got plans. Got big things I'm trying to do here on the Oskar Quentin Show. Help me do them. But we're going to move on and talk to RAYKYLO. RAYKYLO. There we go. Hello, how old are you?
Me or Oskar?
Oscar's my other account. That's just a backup account. I'm talking to you. No worries.
31.
31. Are you a Trump supporter?
I'm independent. I could sway right on some issues. I can lean left on some, but in regards to like monetary policy and inflation, there's just one thing I wanted to call you out on.
Well, hold on. Just before, because it is just kind of the rules of the show. It's the same thing that happened with the first independent caller today, which is that I just need an answer to whether or not you're a Trump supporter. Did you vote for him?
No, I voted for Harris, but I would agree with some issues on the right in regards to monetary policy. I wanted to call you out. I wanted to call you out that you were wrong on one thing you said about inflation. You can't put all the blame on Trump about inflation, despite the tariffs. Let me just land my plane here. I don't think you can put all the blame on him, and you kind of did there at the end. I mean, Biden did raise it up to 9.
Inflation problem.
Let me finish. Biden did raise it up to 9 back in 22. I understand, but I think I could dial this back to 2008. Kevin Warsh, the current Federal Reserve, currently saying that inflation's a choice. I would argue that inflating the balance sheet maybe hasn't been beneficial to America. How should we be taking care of everybody in the sense of losers? Probably not, especially in Wall Street. I will disagree with the left on that. There should be some, responsibility held there that those people shouldn't really be subsidized. I do agree with Warsh that we should slim the balance sheet and get down to 2% inflation to, control prices and stuff like that. But I mean, to put all the blame on Donald Trump, I think you have TDS. I mean, even to say that as well, that it's his fault.
TDS.
Yeah,
man, I don't know if I want to talk about your economic considerations or what the fuck TDS is, because I don't think that the president is supposed to be able to...
I don't think you talked about anything that I just mentioned. I talked about 2008. I'm talking about the current Federal Reserve. Even today, if you want to look at it, the unemployment rate went down. My question to you is,
what is this? What do you want me to respond to then? Because
I'm trying, because I think you're the problem with my party is the liberal ideology can get kind of skewed. I think the liberal ideology is the problem in the Democratic Party, which is why we lose.
Okay, hold on. We're trying to talk about Trump v. Biden, right?
I'm trying to talk about the whole thing.
Right. I mean, the whole thing is very broken. But if the Republicans win the midterms,
the liberal agenda is the issue with our party.
I would love to fix all that. The system is so delightfully fucking broken. The Liberal Party, the Democratic Party, the Establishment Party, very fucking broken. Bombing too many kids in the last 20 years. I totally fucking agree. I believe with my heart I will go to prison if the Republicans maintain control of Congress after the midterms. So right now, that's what I'm concerned about.
I mean, but look, do you not agree that there are some issues that maybe the Democratic Party is leaning to left when it comes to regulation, even when it comes to banking, when it comes to look, fair enough.
I disagree. I think that you came up expecting me to really defend the shit out of everything that the Democratic Party is, and that is not the type of liberal that you're talking to. I'm sorry. I think I'm farther left than you think I am. I don't think I'm as far left as maybe you'd want me to be. I don't know. You said you're an independent.
I mean, I think you're wrong.
There's always the question of which type of independent you are. You're a centrist independent or you're far left independent.
I think you're wrong on the issue of inflation, though. I mean, what you were saying was not true at all. What
did I say that wasn't true?
I mean, the whole thing. I mean, you can't put blame on anybody for anything right now. I mean, you can put blame on the hatred.
I'm sorry.
You can put blame
the
on
current
the
inflation is mostly being driven by the increased cost of global fuel prices because of the Iran war.
No,
Do you
it's
agree?
not. That's headline inflation. The Federal Reserve only looks at core inflation. That's not true. And they look past headline inflation because it's short term. So you're wrong.
No, dude, that's fucking nonsense. The idea that Trump is not responsible for the current uptick in inflation that's happened this calendar year, mostly because of the war in Iran, is nonsense, and I think you know it.
You just said, look, listen to what I just said. The current Federal Reserve and any Federal Reserve will look past an energy shock because it's short term. What's the price of oil right now on the paper? 68?
It changes so frequently. It's going down because the war is over.
It's 68 today.
But the ripple effects of inflation.
It's 68 today.
68?
That's the price of a barrel of oil right now.
I heard you the first 4 times. Now, my concern is that when oil prices are this high for this long, that adds cost to all the things that are manufactured and shipped over the course of this period, which is coming up to be something like 2 quarters. And that's really bad for inflation. That's why we expect inflation to be over 4% by the end of the year if it's not already. Is it over 4% already? I know new numbers came out recently. Anyway,
it's getting there. I think those are 3.
It'd be a little bit like if I set your house on fire and I'm standing here being like, look, I put the fire out. I don't care that some of your stuff was ruined. Is that a sensible argument from an arsonist?
I mean,
4.3%, 4.2% according to the chat, something like that.
We lost Michigan because she supported the Star of David.
What?
I mean, come on. We were going to end up here either way.
Yes, I hate that the establishment Democrats support Israel. I'm not going to be able to help with that problem if I'm in prison, which is what I think will happen if the Republicans maintain control.
Do you think this conflict, whether or not it...
You're voiding everything I'm saying. Like I gave you this arsonist analogy where if somebody sets your house on fire and then puts the fire out and says, look how low the temperature of your house is. I sprayed all this water on it. I don't care. I care about the fact that it was on fire for 6 months and there's damage caused by that. Why aren't you recognizing that damage? If you have a good reason,
it is recognizable. I could say that Biden did the same thing when he raised it to 9 and dropped it to 2.6. But people you couldn't.
We've talked about that a lot already today. Trump and Biden both did things that caused that very high inflation rate, including Trump taking the first big step to cause it by sending Americans a check for $1,200, which is a very good thing that he did. I'm very glad that he did that. But we knew when he did it that it was going to cause anomalously high inflation that the next president, whoever they were going to have to deal with legislation, which Biden did. Were you not listening earlier?
I jumped on when you were just at the end there of inflation.
So that was the short version of it. My audience has already heard a comprehensive explanation of that exactly today. It's ridiculous for you to suggest that Biden's responsible for that high rate of inflation. He's responsible for it being lowered to a healthier level by the end of his term, which happened remarkably quickly. If we look at those economic measures of
some people never recovered from that. That's not true. Some people never did.
And lots of people died in COVID. It was a global emergency. You recognize that, right? The house was on fire, but neither Biden nor Trump were the arsonist. It was a virus. It was a natural disaster.
Even then, you still had a housing crisis. Cost of homes were going up. No one seemed to give one crap about nobody at that point for first-time buyers, even with a stipend that we currently have right now. I guess what I'm trying to ask is you cannot put blame on just one position right now. I mean, to find the middle ground here. I mean, there is some parts on our party that's messed up.
I'm sorry. Trump is trying to offer 50-year mortgages to bury people in debt until they die for home buyers. What was Kamala Harris's plan for home buyers?
Offering a stipend, I think, of what, $25,000, but the median cost of a home is what, $400,000.
Okay,
even with the stipend,
it's such a bad pivot. I'm kind of letting you do it. Do you actually think that Trump is better for first-time home buyers?
I think he's better in the sense of deregulation. Yes, I think that's needed. I mean, too much bureaucracy.
I will extend the question. Do you think that deregulation is good for first-time home buyers?
You know what? If Bernie May could, and they could find some way to do it, why not?
I'm sorry. I will ask again. Do you think that regulation is good or bad or necessary or unnecessary to make things easier for first-time home buyers?
I think it's unnecessary. I think it's unnecessary.
No, because I was going to say, because the other option is to just let the market do its thing, is to just be a fucking capitalist. But I'm sorry. Are you sitting here suggesting that free market capitalism? Are you sitting here suggesting that free market capitalism is going to make it easier for people to buy their first homes in America?
Probably they'll have to move inland. They'll have to move probably to South Dakota.
That's fucking bananas. In fact, it's so bananas, I'm excited to see what RJ has to say about it. Hello, RJ.
No.
Is this not RJ? Who is this? I don't know. RJ doesn't want to be here. I thought that was RJ. Anyway, it's number one Deem. Is that a troll? He ran. All right, so you can. I'll answer it then. Okay, bring me back. How the fuck do you think that free market capitalism results in people having an easier time buying their first home? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. That goes against everything I understand about how the economy and home buying works.
Well, I'll ask you. Let me just pull up that question because it's the way it's phrased. Give me 1 second.
He's going to go ask ChatGPT. So yeah, sorry, I saw the thumbnail, the profile picture. I didn't read the name. I should have read the name. RJ is in here sometimes. Sorry, what? What are you doing? Are you running like again? If you're sitting here defending these things, I feel like you should at least have a.
Give me a quick minute. Give me a quick minute.
I'm going to keep talking while you're teacup. Do you realize that, right? Like, one of the reasons this show is successful is because I'm so good at filling dead air. Like, nothing's happening on the show right now. You're gone. You're off ChatGPTing away, and I'm just going to sit here and yap, and the people are going to keep listening, and all the people listening in their cars aren't going to go, why is the air silent? Why is nothing coming out of this podcast I'm listening to? I should open my phone and play something else. No, that doesn't happen because I'm so good at yapping. So stop telling me to stop yapping. All right. What did ChatGPT say?
How do we know when irrational exuberance has unduly escalated asset values? That's from Alan Greenspan. After Paul Volcker, when Paul Volcker held the rates like crazy, and then you had a guy like Allen come in, and for 40 years, even during Bush's administration, and I think even Obama.
What? Say that at the beginning. What was that line you gave me from Alan Greenspan? Say it again.
Here, what is it? How do we know when irrational exuberance has unduly escalated asset values? I guess that's the best question. Like when does it end?
Unduly. Sorry. I was a little distracted by something because it's one of my mods who was actually the RJ's demon. Anyway, sorry. Say it again. What is this quote from Greenspan?
All right, here. How do we know when irrational exuberance has unduly escalated asset values?
All right. When irrational exuberance, would you define for me irrational? I know what irrational means, but
I think it's irrational what's going on right now in the stock market and what's going on, and even a trillionaire.
And you're saying that's irrational? I think that, I would say that some irrational exuberance has inflated the values of things like AI companies and the chip manufacturers that supply the hardware that they need. There's some bubbles going on in the market. I would say that that's some irrational exuberance about those technologies. We're talking about homes.
Yeah, I mean, if you even
quit teacupping, dude. Like, what the fuck, dude? I don't want to talk to ChatGPT. Maybe that'd be a fun show. Oscar could try to
if you look at that and the lump of the labor fallacy, which is they could put that blame on immigration and even AI that it's taking jobs and this and that. Before I jump off here, because I have been rambling here. I think at the end of the day, this pain is just here Could we have phrased it some other way and not put the middle finger at some people that have nothing to do with this? Probably.
The question was, to remind everybody who just joined, the question was, how is free market capitalism better for first-time home buyers?
Because people that are selling the home are making money.
That's bad for the buyer, and we're asking about the home buyer.
Well,
not just
bad for the buyer,
and we're talking about buyers specifically. We're talking about buyers who didn't own a home previously, which means that they can't just do an asset transfer of getting whatever equity they have in the house moved over to the new house and setting up a new loan. People who can't do that. That's why we care about first-time home buyers. We're trying to get people involved in that system. How is something that benefits? No, moving to an apartment is not a solution for somebody who's trying to become a first-time home buyer. You realize that, right? Okay. The question was, how is free market capitalism good for the buyer? And you told me how it's good for the seller, which is obviously true. Obviously, free market capitalism benefits those who already have the fucking capital. Fucking duh, buddy. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the first-time home buyer, which is what we've been talking about this whole time. And you're bringing me quotes that you don't even understand and know how to pronounce, because it's unduly, by the way.
Unduly. Thanks for correcting.
What? Yeah. What? Seriously? What? How? Your argument was in favor of the buyer. That's in favor of the seller. That's backwards. We're talking about the buyer.
Look, I get some things, or you can be on the right. That's all I'm trying to say, okay? And I'll be honest, I would sway that way. And
what do you? Even though it doesn't. I don't understand what you just said. Your answer was I get some things about how you can be on the right. What did you just say to me? I don't understand.
I believe that you got to be corrupt. I mean, you have to change the rules. That's what I mean. Capitalism by nature is corrupt. It always will be. And so there's a black market by default.
Are you conceding that capitalism is in fact not good for the home buyer, especially the first-time home buyer?
Yes.
Okay, then why did you say that? Why were you so confident about that?
Because at the end of the day, there's nothing changed. I mean, Arizona, you can't zone everywhere. There's no water. It is what it is. The price of a home is gentrified.
You're trying to disingenuously argue for points that you don't believe in because you think that if the public believes your bad points about this, you'll get the outcome that you want. You're an accelerationist.
I guess so. People are probably going to laugh in my face and just say this guy's an idiot. But you know what?
Wait, hold on. Let's see if you're good at having a conversation. When I say I just levied an accusation against you that you're an accelerationist, do you know what I'm accusing you of? Do you know what that means?
That I don't care if you accelerated, even though people get left behind. But I do believe in subsidies, so it depends who you're asking.
Well, I mean, that's like a little bit true of what I said, but I don't actually think that you know what an accelerationist is in terms of politics. Can you define accelerationist in the way that we're using it in this conversation right now?
I'll have to ask ChatGPT for that, so no, not at the moment.
Hey, so don't pretend that you know what you're talking about when you don't.
What is an accelerationist? And tell me right now.
I will in just a moment, but can we just point out, how old you said? You said you're 26?
31.
Oh God, you're older than me. Yeah,
that's
dude.
Okay.
You should. Well, the reason that's disappointing to me is because I don't think that you should go through your life like steamrolling through parts of conversations that you don't understand. I accused you of being an accelerationist, and you don't even know what that means. And then you had an opinion about me, thinking that you're an accelerationist. You said something like, "Oh, well, I guess I am," or something like that.
Don't be a pseudo-intellectual. So come on.
I think you're the one who's being a pseudo-intellectual by pretending that you know what those words mean, bringing up a bunch of other big words and quotes when you can't even pronounce the words in the quotes or explain to them what they mean or how they're relevant to the conversation, or even if they are relevant to the conversation, how they actually defend your point.
You put blame on the orange man for a good chunk of the stuff. I can't blame the orange man for everything. I can blame him for some of the stuff.
An accelerationist is somebody who thinks that if we let things get really bad, the system will collapse and be replaced by something better. So if you support Trump because what he's doing is so obviously corrupt and horrible that it'll cause such strife in the system that there will elicit change that you want, that's what an accelerationist is.
But then against the lump of the labor fallacy, which is basically what you're kind of saying is like, if it's replaced, it's there. If so many jobs are available. I don't know
this fallacy. You've mentioned it twice. What is it? The lump of labor fallacy?
Yeah, that they teach that in Econ 101, which basically.
Let me remind myself. I was the economics tutor, but it's been like 10 years. Let's see. Lump of labor fallacy. Let's get me educated on this, because here you said something that I didn't understand, so here I am learning. In economics, the lump of labor fallacy is the misconception that there is a finite amount of work, a lump of labor, to be done within an economy. It is also known as the lump of jobs fallacy, the fallacy of labor scarcity, fixed pie fallacy. Okay, yeah. So it's something. It's like it looks like the amount. It's basically like the fallacy of assuming that there's, if I'm understanding correctly, it's the fallacy that there's like a supply limit or demand limit for labor, that labor is demand inflexible in an economy. Is that what you're accusing me of thinking?
That's I guess so, because you're kind of saying you're trying to change the system. The system's not going to work. Within that fallacy, though, I don't
think you understand the fallacy. Where did I suggest that labor in an economy is demand inflexible? I didn't argue that. That has nothing to do with what I was talking about.
But you're trying to make a sense that the change is not going to be good either way because of what you're saying.
I'm saying that free market capitalism doesn't make the buying experience for homes better for first-time home buyers. That has nothing to do with the demand and flexibility of labor.
But you still made a sense of the system, though. I mean, I'm trying to make a sense that the system is being changed.
How did if the lump of labor fallacy suggests that there's a specific amount of labor that needs to be done, and then and then that gives you a narrow view of the economy that's wrong because there is demand and flexibility in labor. What about what I said suggests that I'm doing that? I don't understand.
I think you're more focused on the short term than the long term sometimes. And
what does that have to do with the lump of labor fallacy, which you've twice accused me of committing?
Because that's what you're kind of trying to signify, that you're more focused on the short term. Because people are getting
that's not what the lump of labor fallacy is. I just looked it up. It
kind of is, though. I mean, you're making the point right now that people are getting left.
Thank you, Emily, for the galaxy. I didn't know. Am I misinterpreting this? Because I'm looking at this right now. I looked up a blurb about it, looked at the Wikipedia article, read the first paragraph, and it's saying that the lump of labor fallacy is like doing an economic analysis that assumes that there's demand and flexibility in labor, that there's that there's a set amount of work that needs to be done and it'll never change. What does that have to? Please make the connection. Educate me and my audience about how that has anything to do with what I said.
The labor fallacy. People that say that, if we'll use immigration for example. If immigrants come in,
why don't we use home buying for an example so that I can understand how it connects to home buying?
No. In this sense, you can only use like the two that I know for sure you can use is immigration and AI, because people are also freaking out about AI because it's also displacing jobs. Because they're saying if this group of people is getting all the jobs, there's not going to be any more jobs for these other group of people.
We're talking about home buying.
I know, but I'm just going to pivot here and just go off on a tangent real quick, and then I'll drive right back.
But you accuse me of this fallacy because of my opinions about home buying, and I am just not understanding.
I know. I conceded to you the argument that does capitalism help the first-time buyer? No, I conceded to that.
But we kept talking about it.
You made a point about a system changing and that's also an issue. But my whole thing is is it really an issue?
I'm having a hard time tracking. Let me just ask this question. Why did you accuse me of committing the lump of labor fallacy?
Because you mentioned about a system changing and that you're not okay with it. And then in that sense, I could use that because
I want all sorts of systems to change. If I didn't want systems to change, I wouldn't run this show. What the fuck are you talking about?
What's wrong with the change right now, despite the immigration reform?
I don't understand what you just accused me of being related to the lump of labor fallacy. You're saying something about me wanting a system to change or not? What does that have to do with the lump of labor fallacy?
No, you're trying to make it say that the change in system is not going to also help a group of people, even though it's displacing people, whether it's work or whatever.
I was arguing that in order to make the home buying market better for the first-time home buyer, some regulations probably required. That was my argument. What does this have to do with the lump of labor fallacy?
There already is regulation on that stuff to some degree.
Yes, there's regulation on everything.
I did concede that argument.
I'm saying that we need to. No, it was a little disingenuous. I think what you just did. I think you understand that. I mean, you need to increase the amount of regulation in order to create protections and allowances that allow first-time home buyers to have an easier time buying homes. I just cannot understand what this has to do with the lump of labor fallacy. I think that you heard about the lump of labor fallacy in the context of something else, and you feel similarly about that topic, so you brought it up as like a buzzword point. But I genuinely think that you indefensibly have no idea what this fallacy is about or how it could possibly apply to this situation.
I disagree with you when you
demonstrate otherwise.
But I disagree with you on the sense about what you said, a system change. Like there has to be a system change, even though it is on the right now. It's on the left.
What does a system change even have to do with the lump of labor fallacy?
Because that's what people think when in the fallacy, people think in a system change, whether it's in immigration or AI, that it's not going to work for everybody at the end of the day. But these things take some
I can see how that relates to that, because I can understand how the lump of labor fallacy relates to things like AI, because I do agree that it's not like we all have our jobs, and if half of us get our jobs taken from AI, we won't have jobs. The way society works is that as machines replace people's jobs, they go on and do better jobs. There's a bunch of jobs we have today that we didn't have at all in the past that I'm really glad exist, like neuroscientist and cardiologist and aerospace engineer. These are really cool jobs that people didn't have in the past before we automated some basic things like doing laundry and cooking food. So now that we've done that, we get to expand on it. Capitalism has this pesky fucking problem, though, that when those sorts of advancements show up, instead of distributing that wealth across society and making society better in the most rapid way possible, rich people get to benefit from it for an undue period of time. I have issues with that. It is because of that sort of outcome that bad things happen in the home market. That's a tenuous connection I can make to the topic, but I am just not understanding why you accuse me of the lump of labor fallacy.
Because you mentioned the system change, and that kind of dials in with that. People get
Keep
scared
saying
of
system change. Which system change did I bring up? What are you I talk about system change all the
right
time.
now, it's going on. The Trump administration is a system change that you're not happy about at all.
And that means I'm committing the lump of labor fallacy?
Well, maybe a little bit. You are staying put on one idea.
Is that I'm really trying to understand why you accused me of that, and you're saying it's because I'm unhappy with the policies of the president. That means therefore I'm committing the lump of labor fallacy. We hadn't brought up like automation or artificial intelligence.
I mean, I would defend you on the immigration part because I don't support that issue. But on the sense of AI, maybe you would probably disagree with me.
We were talking about home buying, buddy. What the fuck? What is going on here?
I conceded the home buying. Either way, I'm gonna jump here. I'll probably be back on one day with you, but it was a pleasure, Oscar.
I hope so, dude. I hope I remember to ask you how I committed the lump of labor fallacy because you still haven't.
Ask Kevin Ward.
You haven't conceded that it was a bunch of fucking made up nonsense that you don't understand.
I gotta ask you one last question, just because I gotta ask. Do you think they're gonna cut the rates in 2027? Yes or no? Or are they gonna hike the rate? What do you think? Before I let you go.
Gosh, monetary policy that far out? Couldn't tell you, dude. Flip of the fucking coin. Too much you can happen between now and then.
Do you think labor market's going to keep weakening, which is going to, and inflation's going to settle like they say they are? Like
it's difficult with labor market data when people become desperate, because when people become desperate, that can actually help things.
Well, do you see the data today? It was 52 jobs. It came in a negative 70,000.
Little below expected. I did see that.
Yeah, but the unemployment came down to 4.2. So that was interesting.
It's funny. I was just saying that when people are desperate, things like the employment figures can reflect the fact that people are desperate and taking more jobs. The flat employment percentage doesn't always show you the quality of jobs that people are working. I'm concerned about the number of unemployed or underemployed Americans who are still counted as employed on that figure, which is why I brought that up before you brought up inflation, because I kind of saw where we were going with that. Or not inflation,
I think just to land my plane here to anybody listening, the problem with all these reports, I think consumer spending is only, it's not, I think it is the facts. The Federal Reserve did a study in 2025 that only 20% of household income accounts for consumer spending. So that's people making like 250,000 plus in household income with like 700 to a million in assets, which is a home, stock, whatever.
Yeah, dude, I don't think we're going to have a sensible conversation about people's marginal propensity to consume. I don't think you understand.
No, I'm not saying that.
Well,
but I will say that to MAGA, and a lot of people ain't making 250. So it's a hard thing to talk because those consumer reports are all bullcrap at the end of the day. So
yeah, we'll see if they cut I just don't give a shit how people who are making that much money are doing, because they're doing fine. They get to feed themselves. I'm not worried about them. They're doing great.
Yeah, we'll see if they give subsidy back to the people, but that's getting taken away with the big beautiful bill. So let's see how it goes. Oscar, it was a pleasure. Later, guys. Hey, bye.
Look, buddy, I know you're going to run. Okay, I'm just going to let him go. Yeah, you can't land the plane if you put a quarter in it to start it, dude. You're at the grocery store, not the airport. We're going to talk to Cone King 111 after I remind everybody there's a link tree in the bio where you can support the show by sending money to my Venmo, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, or Patreon, or just follow me on the other platforms. That sort of thing helps out quite a lot. It is July 2nd, which means I'm going to read David's $5. She said, at this point, Oscar might as well pull up ChatGPT and debate it, since that's all the guests do is pull up info to get it. Yeah, that guy was running to ChatGPT, and he was even open about it. I almost made the joke, but he cut me off. I was going to say, I don't need you here. I could just argue with ChatGPT. I could just add, because here's what people don't realize is that if you ask ChatGPT a question, like, give me a good reason for Trump going to war with Iran, it will try. It will come up with a good reason why Trump went to war to the war in Iran. You are presupposing that there is a good reason to go to war with Iran, and it's going to work within those parameters to please you. That's how large language models work. It's playing like devil's advocate for you in the same way that you might in a speech and debate class if you get assigned the wrong side of the argument. It doesn't, if you start by, the question is there a good argument? Is the war good? Not, hey, the war is good, tell me why. If you ask ChatGPT that, it'll fucking try, and it'll give you some fucking bullshit. Thank you for the galaxy. Who sent it? Christopher. Thank you for the galaxy. I appreciate you. And thank you, Francisco, for the 5. Ooh, where did it go? Venmo notifications are hard to read sometimes. Francisco sent me $5 on Venmo to say, if I never hear from Splinter, it'll be too soon. We're all dumber for listening to him. Yeah, sorry for subjecting you guys to all of that. And then Lucky Phil, let me hop over to my email so I can read his donations over on Buy Me a Coffee. Buy Me a Coffee is not always, he's like the only one on there. So W's in the chat for Lucky Phil for sending money to my Buy Me a Coffee so it doesn't feel so lonely. He said, sad state of affairs when telling kids you're protected. Oh, wait, no, that was the first one. He sent a second one. He said, fallacy schmallacy. God damn it, caller. Learn what the GPT tells you before you try to use it in a debate. Otherwise, you sound like a giant phallus. I agree. Like, he's just saying things to me that he genuinely himself doesn't understand. It's It's terrible. We've got Kronos over on YouTube Super Chat, who sent me $5 to say, when will we get a smart caller? Wait, I forgot they don't exist. Well, if they're trying to defend Trump, you know, like some of the leftist callers are smart sometimes. Some of the independent callers are smart. They're all pretty reprehensible usually. Not all the leftists. I don't know. The Trump supporters, it's pretty hard. Like there's people who the smart Trump supporters are the dangerous ones. The people who know that they're peddling bullshit and peddle it anyway because they want to live in a white Christian ethno state or something. People like RC, people like them are monstrous. Anyway, Cone King 111, you've been waiting very patiently. Cone _ King 111. Why don't you tell me how old you are?
Hi, I'm 14 years old.
Nope, gotta be 18 to be on TikTok Live. Them's the rules, everybody. Sorry, we're gonna talk to Noah, who hopefully is an adult.
Hey, Oscar.
Hello, Noah. How old are you?
21.
21. Are you a Trump supporter?
Maybe.
All right. A lot of people watching. This is my job, making a living here. You got 10 seconds to convince me I shouldn't hang up on you.
But like, Trump's funny though. So why can't he beat our president?
Do you think it's good for the president? Are you good to measure the president by how funny they are?
Well, he's entertaining.
What are the three branches of the government?
We got the legislative, we got the executive, and we got the judicial.
Who's a politician that you hate?
Politician that I hate? Mamdani.
Okay. Which branch does he work at?
I don't know. He's a mayor. Would that mean he's one of the three branches? I don't know.
Yeah, it would.
Legislative. That's my best guess. Is that right?
Oh, no. It's actually a decent guess. It's a better guess than judicial, but no, mayors work at the executive branch.
Oh, really? Wait, why?
Because basically, like when you have like unitary control like that, like people like mayors and governors and presidents work at the executive branch. They don't make laws. They execute authority.
I guess that makes sense, yeah. But he doesn't like pass like bills or like help pass bills?
Well, he sponsors bills. He can say, hey, I'd really like for you to vote for this bill if you're working in the legislative branch. And there are situations where people who are in the executive branch have a tie-breaking vote in the legislative branch. That's something I talk about a lot. Kamala Harris broke a lot of tied votes in the Senate while she was vice president, because that's the vice president's job, even though she's in the executive branch. Because when the legislative branch has a tie, the executive branch executes some executive authority about which way it should go.
Okay. I guess that's fine. Will you debate me on flat Earth?
No. Goodbye, Noah. Thanks everybody for supporting the show. I've got some gifts to take a look at over on YouTube Super Chat. Let's make sure I can see it. Who's sending gifts? Alina's sending a gift. More people send gifts than that. Where do they go? I need to figure out how to use OBS to look at these things a little bit better. Is the request queue empty? It is. There we are. We got flat earthers and I don't even know. What was that first caller who was not making sense? We got ChatGPT University calling in today. I should make a diploma from ChatGPT University and put it on the wall back there. Oh, somebody was just in the request queue. All right, I gotta start complaining. If you're not double tapping away on the screen on TikTok, we're coming up on 250,000 likes for today, which is exciting. But we gotta keep going. Rel, I forgive you. It's okay that you didn't mean to request. You are forgiven, but the callers generally aren't, and I don't know. I'd like to have an interesting debate about some of this stuff, but I don't know. What even does the prompt say today? MAGA is grasping for straws. Yeah, they're teacupping themselves to like go talk to ChatGPT or whatever. But that guy wasn't even a Trump supporter. He was just, I don't know. People go down these rabbit holes and get like this like super nonsensical perspective on the world, and they get themselves like thoroughly convinced that everything makes perfect sense because they've twisted all the definitions in a way that their way of thinking about it makes sense. Get out there and talk to people. Like if you're not making sense to people, Like, it's okay if you think you have a brilliant idea that goes against the grain and is different and you want to talk about it with people. But if people aren't understanding you, if somebody can't have a 10-minute conversation with you and then relay your beliefs to somebody else, here's what this guy thinks. He thinks this, and that in their own language. You're probably just not conveying it to them very effectively. And that's the sort of thing I used to teach. I used to teach public speaking to STEM students. And a lot of time I would say to a student that their description of something was correct. They used all the words correctly. But to somebody who doesn't know very much about marine biology, it was kind of a lot. Maybe slow it down. You use 3 big words. I think you need 3 sentences where each one of them makes it a little more obvious to the listener what one of those big words means. That has nothing to do with the content of your argument. That just has to do with how you describe things. You know, if you think about the hundreds of people watching, a lot of them aren't going to know the word. How many of them can you help along by making it obvious through the context what the word means? Maybe you do that the first couple of times you use that word, and then later in the conversation you don't have to be as careful because people get educated about what the word means through context, because that's how most people learn what most words mean. And you can do that for your audience regardless of whether or not they agree with you in a totally good faith way. That's just not what the fucking Phil Bros do. It's not what the ChatGPT university graduates do. Is they just think that they have this word that makes them smarter, that makes their argument better, and they can just wag it around like a fucking baton and think that whoever gets hit by it is made smarter or gets dunked on or gets an L in the debate or whatever the fuck it is. And it's just a really, like, ineffective is one way to look at that type of debate strategy. But in addition to it being ineffective, it just kind of demonstrates that your social skills are lacking in a way that if they weren't, it might be a little bit better for the conversation, right? Like even if what you're saying is technically right, if you're so insistent on everybody needing to pause the show, which they can't because it's a fucking live show here on TikTok, YouTubers can pause it, but the TikTok people can't. It's like a radio show. If you, in that sense, if you think that you're better for leaving people behind who don't understand what you're saying, like, you're not wrong about what you said necessarily. You are just an asshole, though. Like, that is just shitty. It's just a shitty way to be. So, I don't know. But it goes back to, maybe that's the tone of this episode, because I talked at the beginning of the episode about how it's so devastating that the chuds just can't even consider the societal cost of a lot of what's happening. Like, they don't care about children getting tear gassed in Minneapolis. They don't care about schools getting canceled to protect kids from the federal agents. And these people don't care about people just even understanding them. They care more about being right than people understanding what their position is. I try not to just like dunk on people where I show everybody that they're wrong. The reason I get so many moments where I really gag the collar and they pause and stammer and lose their train of thought is because I show them that they're wrong. I educate them about the fact that they're wrong. That's always the fucking goal. If I can get the caller to understand that they're wrong, that it puts them in a pretty difficult position. And sometimes they admit it. We had a couple of concessions today. That was neat. Other times they just like go 10 toes down and just start yelling. They start attacking me, or they start pivoting, or all these other approaches. And then when I call it out, like, that's what I do, right? Is like, can we teach the caller that they're wrong about this thing? Can we teach them the thing that they don't know, that if they knew it, they'd know they were wrong? Can I teach them? Can I try to understand their position? Can I have them explain it in a way that I understand? Because if you can't explain it in a way that I understand, there's a good chance it doesn't make sense, unless you're like a neuroscientist or nuclear physicist or something really complicated that I just don't have the capability to understand. But like, I think I can understand the lump of labor fallacy, but that guy couldn't tell me how it applied to me. Weston on YouTube Super Chat says the education part is why you're better at this than most political debaters. Yeah, I just think I come from it from a teacher perspective. For most people know this watching my show, but for the newbies, I gave up a job being a high school teacher to run this show full time, which is a little bit sad. To take away my like formal education position, but I don't know. I think it's like weird because I was so averse to talking about politics with like my 17-year-old students, because you can't do that, obviously. And then I have 18-year-old callers where it's fair game for me to curse at them and tell them they're assholes. Longtime viewers of the show know that the younger a guest is, the more relaxed I am with them, the less I jump down their throat for their nonsense. Just because, I think an 18-year-old is more savable than a 38-year-old who has the same perspective. So I just try to be a little bit more compassionate for these people who lost a lot of school to COVID. These are people who didn't get a proper education, at least the way I judge what a proper education should be. Yeah, it's devastating. And ChatGPT is hard, man. Like that, I did talk to my students about. I did have to talk to my students about why ChatGPT is bad, and I talked to them about how ChatGPT is sometimes good for really simple problems. Like I'm teaching some people how to edit the show right now. I'm getting them up to speed on the workflow. And one thing I'll say is that like if the Google AI tells you the keyboard macro to use in Premiere to edit something, well, you can just check immediately if it works or it doesn't. And that's a perfectly fine use of AI because who the fuck cares? But if you rely on that to figure things out, then you never learn how to figure things out. And it's like refusing to learn how to do long division, which when I was a kid, the teacher would say, well, you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket when you're older. Boy, were they wrong. But that's not a good reason to say that you should learn how to do math is because you're not going to have a calculator. It's because when you learn how to do more complicated math, if you lack the fundamental skills of long division, you're not going to be very good at algebra. You're not going to be very good at pre-calculus. You're definitely not going to be very good at calculus. All these smaller problems that are part of the cognitive workload of understanding a bigger problem, or that's why you learn long division. That's why you learn how to carry the one on paper, even if you have a calculator in your pocket. And it's the same thing with ChatGPT. You're not going to be good at researching difficult questions if you've spent your youth looking up easy problems through ChatGPT and mostly making it because ChatGPT is pretty good at easy questions, gets them generally right. It's when you start asking it questions about like economic policy or whether or not the rates are going to change next year and how they're going to change or something like that, where it just starts spitting out fucking nonsense. And it doesn't really have a gate where it says like, ooh, you've asked me a question that I'm bad at answering. I'm not good at this type of question. Your question is unclear to me. It doesn't have a mechanism for telling you that. Part of the way the technology works is that it's actually pretty difficult to install a mechanism for it to self-assess in that way because it's a black box. Even the people who made ChatGPT and other large language models don't actually understand down to the nitty-gritty, down to the ones and zeros, how they work, which is a deviation from how it's been historically. When Siri was new, every single thing that it could do was something that somebody had written a line of code about. Like it was a thing that a bunch of engineers had to write physical code. Every little rule that exists in Siri was something that somebody wrote. But now we're using AI to do it, so we just can't even control the perspective that it's having. And if you don't understand that about the tools you're using, it's the same problem that people my age have, where they're bad at math because they had smartphones when they were in high school or whatever. So they used the shortcut of just never getting good at doing arithmetic in their head. So now you're just bad at solving big problems that require little arithmetic steps along the way. Thank you very much for the $10, Lana, over on YouTube. Alina, I keep fucking it up. I'm so sorry, Alina. I've got a couple regular donors whose names I mess up, and they're not even hard. I should just remember. Alina. Chat on TikTok, you're gonna hold me accountable for fucking it up because Alina's over on YouTube, so you gotta fucking spam it if I say it wrong. Alina, YouTube seems to be doing a thing where if you go to buy gems to give gifts, you can get 50 for free right now. Everyone on YouTube, get your gems and get a bunch of gifts to Oskar. Well, Alina, I hope the glitch is for everybody and not just for you. Give me those gems. I don't know what the gems are worth. I'm kind of new to the live streaming on YouTube, but I very much appreciate you for spending $10 to highlight that, Alina. And and generally speaking, just got a membership milestone. Chat. Oh, I see. Yeah. So Jen's been a member for a month. So that's why let her add this highlighted message that says, what is a membership milestone? Chat. Oh, cool. There we go. It's on the screen. Because people are supporting the show. And yeah, well, we're sitting here without a caller. Jay, I do see you in the request queue, but we're mid-show. And I've got my Thursday night gig tonight. So I am trying to, I am hoping to get another oppositional caller before we do a little bit of friendly time if you've got something that you want to talk about. But maybe I should open the Discord and see what that is. Haven't been minding the Discord very well today. Anyway, but yeah, if I'm going to do the longer commercial, because while we're sitting here waiting for a caller, I will point out that the show has employees now. The show pays for my cost of living. I've kept my cost of living pretty low. Putting together a list of stuff that we need to be able to do the show mobily. That's the goal, is to be able to get the show mobile so I can operate easily from a hotel room, like seamlessly, so we can do some traveling. Because I'd love to have gone to Delaney Hall. I'd love to be in DC right now. But I'm hoping I can follow the spotlight around the country a little bit. That's one of the things I want to spend the donations on. So we're working on that and working on getting caught up on clips. I know people have been asking about clips. They are coming out again. I did kind of let the pages stagnate in terms of what the most recent content was, just for some of these recent weeks where I've had a lot of attention from some certain bigger creators. Okay, are the gems rolling in on YouTube? Is that what's going on? Yes, Kat sent me some gems. Oh, now a trophy cake for 1,000 jewels? That's a bigger one. Thank you, Kat. I appreciate you. Is that it? Are we out of callers? I don't know. Let's see. Wait, what's Jay say? I'm just gonna figure out what Jay wants. Jay, you're coming up. Jay is 18. Jay works on the Discord.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing all right. Little dearthy on the callers today. No regular I love Trump supporters to talk to.
Well, if it helps the algorithm, I love Trump. Trump 2028, 2023.
No, that's unconstitutional. Trump. He's only supposed to run twice, whatever.
Let Trump do whatever he wants. Just let him do whatever he wants.
No, the president shouldn't be able to do whatever they want. That's silly. That's if a president can do whatever they want, that's not a president. That's a dictator. No.
Shh, don't tell them. Shh, you're exposing it. Don't tell them.
Oh no.
But no, I had one question about COVID. I noticed during COVID that there was a shutdown between, at least for me, it was between my middle school up until my early high school age. And I was very lucky enough to have a private tutor where education really didn't affect me. But I want to know from your perspective as a teacher, can you say COVID had a learning effect on the current generation of students? Because there are some people who were like quarantined in their house and couldn't like go to school, couldn't like get the same access of education that I was fortunately able to have, because my school provided me with Chromebooks and online schooling and chargers and things like that. So I never had to worry about an education. But I was wondering if there's a worry that we should be wondering between that COVID time that kids like teenagers, little toddlers, things like that, if they had a learning effect because of that.
Yeah. I'll let you down to keep the line clear to hopefully get a caller in. But COVID was devastating for people, and most people, you're right, did not have the sort of privileges that you did. So there's this cohort of people who, if Jay is 18, it's 2026, right? So 6 years ago, Jay would have been, middle school, like going into high school. And I think that as an educator, I can say that that's the worst time. If you miss middle school and the beginning of high school, and then you get to do high school after COVID, as Jay got to, like that's exactly the sweet spot for being fucked by COVID. I think a lot of things that people learn when they're younger than that, people's parents are better equipped to teach them. So people were helping their kids with their homework. It's a little easier to help your kid with homework if they're like 7 and learning how to read than if they're 17 and learning pre-calculus. Because maybe as a parent, you don't know pre-calculus. Maybe you can't afford a tutor who does. And I will just say that it is my experience that these students are in trouble. That said, I was a high school teacher for a year, and that was my first job back as an educator in a formal context since I lost my job teaching computer programming to kids, because the company I was working for went under because of COVID. So, I would even point out to Jay that even somebody who has the privileges of like a Chromebook or a tutor or whatever systems to help you get through a dark time where the schools are closed or are not running as functionally as they should, even that is not going to be a perfect substitute for an in-person education. I, as an educator, am pretty firmly of the belief that laptops are not like an easy shortcut to give students a good education. Kids learn better when they do it on paper. The data just suggests that, regardless of how you feel about it. So I do worry about those sort of things. But I actually talk about it quite a lot on the show. So people who watch a lot know I've got real opinions as an educator. But we're going to talk to Aurora001 and see if we get an oppositional debate. Let's talk about some interesting stuff and see who's right. I'll wait for them to connect, and I will thank Araxis for the $2 on Cash App, who said, is it bootstraps or Trump? What about hard work? I think that one came in earlier and I missed it. I'm sorry, Araxis. Oh, both of these did. These came in like 45 minutes ago. I'm sorry, Araxis. If I got a 76% pay raise, was that me or Biden? Yeah, we had a caller who thought that how their life went during a particular president's term is a good indicator of whether or not that's a president who's doing a good job or not, which I think is nonsense. But Aurora is still connecting, so I think I'm going to disconnect them. Feel free to get back in the queue if you meant to join, but we're going to talk to GigaBrainPat, one word. I'm going to see if he's got a Giga Brain. Or is it Giga Brain? I think Giga Brain.
No, it's Giga Brain. Giga Brain's bad, not Giga Brain.
Giga Brain sounds bad. Let's go with Giga Brain. How old are you?
I'm 22.
22. Are you a Trump supporter?
No. I'm a liberal, but I thought we could have a opposing dialogue.
Well, I mean, I got 45 minutes left in the show, and I don't have a Trump caller at the moment. So what's the topic you'd want to discuss? Sounds like maybe you disagree with me about something.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. I think I had watched one of your lives recently, and I think you were speaking with a level of admiration for some of like the DSA types within the Democratic coalition, and I'm personally of the opinion that's bad, and I'm curious to know where you stand on that.
Well, so I always kind of have to say that like the closest political label that works for me in American politics is Democratic Socialist, because if we look at the candidates who are, or the politicians who are actually seated in the federal government who subscribe to that label, they most closely align with the policies that I want. But the system's broken in such a way that nobody who actually thinks what I think about politics or ethics would ever get elected to such a role. So I don't actually align perfectly with any of these people. I just align with the people who identify as Democratic Socialists in American politics a little bit better than the establishment Democrats. Are you calling in to defend the establishment Democrats?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do that. I guess I did have a bit of contention with your specific political label. I feel like oftentimes people use the term democratic socialism when most of the time they're just advocating for, like, you know, a capitalist system with really robust social safety nets.
Well, so the philosophers like to point out, and the Philbros certainly like to point out, that if you take a philosophy class, you'll learn about political ideologies. And the one that you learn about that best describes me and best describes democratic socialists in American politics are not actually democratic socialists. They're what the philosopher would call social democrats. Most people blame Bernie Sanders for calling himself the wrong thing when he became the first main stage democratic socialist in American politics. And I agree, he fucked it up. He kind of muddied the waters in terms of what these labels mean, because he's, in a philosophical sense, not a democratic socialist at all. He's a social democrat. Social democrats, instead of eroding capitalism away, want to allow capitalism to work over there in the public domain, while there's all these hefty social programs that protect people's well-being and stuff. So they're very similar ideologies, but in terms of the long-term course, the long-term plans about what they want for society over the course of decades or potentially the rest of our lifetime or something like that, they disagree in some important nuanced ways. But it's frustrating to me. I'm a little annoyed with Bernie Sanders for creating this little moment of dialogue I need to have 4 or 5 times a week to clarify these things, because it is important that we get it right.
Yeah, I hear you. So just to be clear, are you saying you're more aligned with social democracy? However, to be like politically effective, you use the term democratic socialist?
Well, the truth is that I think that in order to place me along the spectrum from a social democrat to a democratic socialist, we have to consider whether, like, what the time span is of the person that the philosopher would call a democratic socialist, which is that they want to erode capitalism away until it's gone. Because I actually do want to do that, just like over the course of the next 100 years. So in the local sense, over the course of the next 10 years, I look an awful lot like a social democrat. But if you actually think about what I want and what I think the best society would be, then I'm a democratic socialist. The reality is, it's just that I'm a pragmatist. I don't think it's possible to, like, defeat capitalism in the next 10 years. I don't think it's reasonable for anybody to suggest that we should try, but we can erode capitalism in the next 10 years and then continue eroding it after that and get rid of a lot of the evils that it causes along the way. I think that's a thing that can happen. That's what I'm cooking up. So I'm kind of in the middle here. It's it's better to just understand what I want than to try to find which of these labels best applies to me.
Yeah, I understand what you say. I guess my question to you would just be, as it relates to capitalism versus socialism, I'm assuming you have a disfavorable view of capitalism. And so I guess my question to you is...
Sorry, you broke up for just a second there. What view of capitalism? I didn't hear it.
Like, you have a disfavorable view of capitalism.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things I can give it a point for. There's certain things about competition that are good for advancement and such. Like, I recognize those arguments, but, like, broadly, the greatest evils in our society are caused by people winning at capitalism in a way that I think that should be disallowed via regulation.
How so?
I think that, like, having $1 billion is necessarily an unethical state of affairs for a single human being, or having $1 billion net worth. Certainly having a multi-billion-dollar net worth is an even bigger evil. So I think that we should have regulations in place that make it almost mathematically impossible for a single person to accrue that much power.
Well, I guess my question to you would be, why is it inherently immoral to have absorbent wealth in this current society?
Because there isn't enough to go around. If you were in a room with 100 people and 20 of them didn't have any food and you had 55 donuts, you're an asshole.
Well, surely that doesn't apply to the average American, right?
That's a pretty good description of the state of affairs. Plenty of people can't eat.
I completely disagree with that. The average American has some of the highest quality.
I'm doing okay these days. I'm doing okay these days because of the show. Thanks, everybody. I have chosen between rent and food this calendar year.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't think you can extrapolate that to the average American.
Don't be sorry for me. I escaped it. I got a fucking meal ticket by being good at yapping. I figured it out. I'm good. A bunch of people still aren't, though. I'm very
awesome.
worried about them.
I hear you, and I think there's definitely, like, ways we can address, like, the social inequality of the 21st century. I just have intention with this notion that, like, capitalism is the root of it.
Do you recognize that if you're in a room with 100 people and 20 of them don't have any food, and you have enough food to feed 50 people, and you don't share it, that you're an asshole?
I don't think that analogy necessarily maps onto reality. Like,
okay, we can talk about whether or not it maps after you answer the question. Do you recognize that the guy who has 50 lunches is an asshole?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Under the specific
then explain to me how it doesn't map, because there are people like myself rather recently who have to choose between things like medicine and rent and food and childcare, all these very necessary things that people need. If people have to choose between one of those things, they're necessarily going to leave something off the table or create debt for themselves, which removes their social mobility, because instead of being able to benefit from the prosperity they have later in their life, it gets used to pay back their prior need to decide between those things. That's the people who don't have the donuts, and the billionaires are the people who have 50 lunches. How is it a bad analogy?
Yeah, so when we seemingly like just evolve like the concept of money and monetary value to that of like school lunches, it can be very easy to see how it could be like, I guess, unjust in some capacity. What we fail to realize is that oftentimes people who accrue positions like the billionaire position oftentimes don't have the same level of like liquidity as the $1 billion presupposes.
Yeah, I understand how net worth works. I also understand how they can borrow against that net worth at super low interest rates, such that effectively they do have that amount of liquid income. But it works a little bit differently in terms of how the power gets transferred. I look at debt that way. Borrow, buy, and die. Like there's all this stuff about billionaires. But the fact of the matter is that we can actually just forget the numbers and ask how much food the billionaire has access to and how much food the person who's choosing between rent and food has access to. And suddenly we're not talking about dollars anymore. We're back to talking about donuts, and the people are still hungry.
I mean, you could literally make this argument for every single American citizen, could you not?
I am.
Well, no, I don't think you understand what I said. What I'm saying is that if the average American lives in absorbent wealth compared to the vast majority of human history, don't you think that then the average American should be over-indexing and like be over-responsible for making sure that every single human being has the nutritional calories necessary to survive?
I can see an outcome where if we're talking about the room with 100 people in it, where 20 of them don't have any food, I could see it sensible to give somebody 2 donuts, 2 lunches, whatever it is, because they're the one who has to sprint. Maybe they walk 10 or 15 miles to the donut shop and pick up the donuts for everybody. Everybody gives them their money and they make that trip. So we pay them with the donuts, and we need to make sure that that person stays happy and healthy, because if they're not, then nobody gets their donuts. So Oscar needs to make sure that his fucking rent is paid, so he doesn't become homeless, because if he becomes homeless, then he'll become a drain on society. So instead of spending my money on charity, I should spend it on rent and food for myself. Thanks, everybody. I'm now able to do that. Yay.
The issue, Oscar, the issue is like, when we're describing like these billionaires in this position of absorbent wealth, I feel like you're not necessarily extending that to the average American, which I think that logic absolutely applies to. The average American has experienced some of the greatest financial success of any human being in the past
60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
Why is that relevant in this conversation?
I get that society is on average getting better, but one thing that's getting worse about society is wealth inequality. What I'm saying is that we have enough wealth to go around. We have enough prosperity to distribute such that people don't have to live paycheck to paycheck, but 60% of Americans do, which means that the average does. So what is your point? People are suffering in a way that's unnecessary is my concern.
Well, so we're saying that this is just an overabundance of exploitation and injustice. This doesn't take into consideration any of the 60%, spending habits or anything. So
you're blaming them for their spending habits. You're blaming people who are choosing between rent and food. You're blaming them for their spending habits.
No, do you understand what I'm saying?
What did their kids do?
I'd love for you to steal my argument.
Their kids go to school hungrier.
Can you steal my argument?
What is your argument?
Okay, so you just don't know. Okay, that's fine.
Well, I asked a second ago if you're saying it's their fault for not working hard. You asked about the spending irresponsibly. You said that something about the spending habits of 60% of people.
So I'm going to try here. So you said that 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck as a response to me saying that the average American lives in absorbent wealth.
Compared to history? Are you saying compared to history?
I would say compared to history, but compared to contemporary history as well.
Yes. It's still miserably unfair what's happening.
How?
Because
if the average American is living in better material conditions than the vast majority of human history, how is it intrinsically unfair?
Do you think that just because we've cured smallpox that we should say, fuck you, we cured smallpox, I don't care if your kids are hungry?
Yeah, so when has the American government said, fuck you, I don't care if your kids are hungry?
That's what you're saying right now. I'm talking to you.
How?
Also, Trump did that when he refused to pay SNAP benefits, which caused millions of children to go without food. He literally did do that, but never mind.
Yeah, well, Trump isn't a representation of liberal democracy, so I'm not going to
try to understand your perspective. I'm talking to you, and it sounds like you don't care about hungry kids. You care more about simping for billionaires. I'm trying to understand why.
I mean, like, that's a super, like, thought-terminating way of depicting my position, but that's your prerogative. So if you just, like, try and land this claim...
Actually, here, I actually just want to do something
to explain it, and now you're just talking over it.
Yeah. I want to interrupt to just like get to something else. I kind of gave a little bit of background, which is that I was kind of broke for a long time. Like I've had some difficult couple years. Been a little more open about that today than I normally am. But part of it's because I'm so thankful that the show makes that not the case for me anymore. I have a couple employees that are working part-time for the show who I'm paying for, and we've got some plans for bigger things that we can do with the platform than just this show. So people have a little bit of background about like what my relationship with all this stuff is. People are making some accusations about you in the chat, and I'm just curious because I think like part of what we're trying to do here is instead of just winning the logical argument is to just check if you care about people who are struggling. Would you mind just telling me what your like financial situation is roughly?
Yeah, so I'm not going to give you like detailed analysis of my financial situation.
When was the last time you chose between rent and food?
Oh, so I personally never had to experience that.
Okay, so your perspective is unrepresentative of that of most of Americans because most of Americans.
So you think it's impossible that I could seemingly have a logical dialogue with you without necessarily having to be exposed to the circumstances?
I think that your perspective
it seems like this is like a massive like reach to try and just like discredit the position that you're not willing to engage with.
I will explain why this is me engaging with it directly. Is that we have to use logic to make arguments, but when we talk about costs and benefits, we have to weigh the value of these things. We have to weigh how important something is. So we can say logically, I can get to this conclusion. Is the conclusion good or bad? Suddenly we are at ought instead of is. So I want to understand a little bit about your perspective on privilege and finances, because it sounds to me like you don't recognize the suffering of people who live paycheck to paycheck as heavily as you should, which I think is the problem. We can use logic to discuss whether or not that suffering is as great as I say it is, or how policies will affect that suffering. But my concern right now is that that's not worth spending time on.
I don't think there's a single American suffering right now. I said that. Yeah, I don't think there's a single American.
That's fucking nonsense.
System receives the same level of so my question to you would be, considering the current dynamics of American politics, considering the current dynamics of the
how many unhoused individuals are there in America? How many people in this country are homeless? Are you aware?
So when we use the term homeless, it's a very ambiguous term that could mean somebody who doesn't.
How many digits is the number? How many digits is the number?
If I were to guess off the top of my head, like genuine homelessness, not just like someone sleeping on their friend's couch.
I'd say probably like fuck you, dude. My God, how many digits?
I mean, like I get the virtue signal. You got to like make your money on the internet, but I mean, it's just really performative and transparent, bro.
All right, whatever. How many digits do you think that number is?
If I were to guess on the top of my head, probably somewhere close to like 100,000.
It is a 6-digit number. It's a much bigger 6-digit number. It's closer to 1 million. Anyway.
Yeah, but when we say 1 million homeless people, are we saying 1 million people living on the street? Are we saying that?
Yes. People.
Can you answer that question? No,
yes.
No, we're not. It's okay. I'm sorry, that's just not true.
If the number is like 750,000, are you suggesting that like something like 10% of them are actually homeless?
No, what I'm saying is that the term homelessness can refer to somebody who doesn't have a necessarily like place to live, but is living on their friend's couch. That would qualify as homelessness, right?
Okay. How about this? Do you think there's a 5-digit number of people who are
properly... Do you both agree that what I just said is descriptively true?
I think you're demonstrating that you're an asshole and you don't care about these people's suffering, which is why I brought them up, and you're doing a great job of it.
I mean, that's rich. You're kind of like parading them around for talking points. I'm asking you a very simple question.
I'm advocating for them, and you're belittling their plight.
I'm going to ask you the question again. Yeah, for sure. You're so virtuous, King. But
what percentage of people who are homeless have mental disabilities that contribute to their homelessness?
I don't know the specific number.
It's more than half. We're not taking care of our mentally ill people.
I probably believe that.
Are these people? Okay, you said that nobody in this country is suffering.
Whenever you've done like virtue signaling, I'd love to actually
you said that nobody in this country is suffering. So we can talk about whether it's a 5 or a 6-digit number, but both of those numbers are way bigger than 0, which is what you claim it is, because I think that most of those people are suffering.
Yeah, so when we say suffering, I feel like that oftentimes implies like conditions that are so terrible that we could like put them in the same category of conditions as like, torture, G-side, all these things, right?
I think a child suffers when they go to school without a full breakfast. I think that's suffering. It's hard to learn when you're hungry.
That's probably like the whitest thing you've ever said, but I mean, it's your position. So
I assure you that is not the whitest thing I have ever said. I'm a country singer. But anyway, you're denying that Americans suffer at all? I was suffering economically recently. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, so again, like you're over-indexing on the term suffering. I think like the standard for suffering is a lot higher than anything the average American experiences in the 21st century. I understand that you're like a socialist, right? So you like are ontologically predisposed to hating capitalism.
No, that was very bad faith what you just did. Nope, stop talking. I'm going to talk over you.
You already said that. You already said that.
No, I didn't say I was a socialist. We had a long, nuanced discussion about the exact labels,
you really
democratic,
did you
socialist versus
you wanted to destroy the capitalist world order? Is that not what you said?
I had a long, nuanced conversation with you about what the labels democratic, socialist.
Okay, so I'm descriptively correct when I say that, correct?
Dude, I am going to mute you if I fucking have to. I'm not having it today. We had a long, nuanced.
I'm going to ask you a question again.
Stop talking over me. We had a long, nuanced discussion about whether or not
coming from you, bro.
Stop interrupting me because you know I'm pointing out that what you did is disingenuous, and I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to explain to the audience because you know you're doing something very clever here. You know that most people watching this might not be here at the beginning of the conversation, which was something like 15 minutes ago. People come and go from their lives, so you know that you can say something like that about me. We had a long conversation about whether. Excuse me, I am not done talking, and if you interrupt me again, I'm going to start over at the beginning. I'm going to get this point out, and if you want to keep looking bad by interrupting me, feel free. I say this every fucking day. I'll keep saying it if I need to. You and I had a long conversation about whether or not the appropriate label for me in the context of American politics is democratic socialist or social democrat, which is different from what the answer to that question is if we're not talking about in an American political context, but in the context of a philosophy class, because they use slightly different definitions. I blamed Bernie Sanders for creating that muddying of the waters with the definitions. We had a long, nuanced discussion about that, and we didn't actually discuss pure socialism, which is a more extreme ideology than any of them. You know that. I don't think you're stupid. I think you're disingenuous. You're accusing me of being a socialist when you know I'm not. That's disingenuous. Now you may speak.
Yeah, so when you call yourself a democratic socialist, I don't think it's a stretch to call you a socialist. When you say that like the existence of the capitalist world order is inherently corrupt, and the existence of billionaires is inherently corrupt, I think it's pretty fair to put you in the category of socialist. You can like waffle and complain that
that's not what I said.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's your prerogative.
That's not what I said.
I'm going to leave you with this, man. You're living in the most economically prosperous nation in human history. There's a reason why.
We got a runner. We got a Phil Bro runner who doesn't care if kids are hungry. Fuck this guy. He sucks.
That was epic, bro. But yeah, so you're living in the most prosperous country to ever exist before in human history. There's a reason why you're able to.
You already said that. I already responded to it. I'm not interested in your disingenuous summary that shows that you're not willing to recognize I've made any good arguments against the thing that you said. If you want to run, you can do it while I'm talking.
I'm sorry, bro.
If you think my arguments are shit, you can explain why they're shit instead of you argued that nobody in this country is suffering, and I brought up homeless people. That's ridiculous. You know that. You brought up your economic circumstances. You demonstrated to us that you are in fact too privileged to have.
Whenever you're done.
We're going back to previous things. That's not gish galloping.
No, it's 100% gish galloping, but if you give me a second. So let's try and get this conversation back on track, right? So we've been having this whole conversation about.
Okay, so let's go back to where you said that the number of people in this country who are suffering is zero. I still think that's nonsense, and you haven't given me a good argument for that fact.
I've got a pretty low bandwidth for performative.
Oh wait, hold on. You actually have to shut up because I have some donations to read because I don't actually value treating you nicely because of the way that you think about other people. So I'm going to read over you. I'm going to say that Jazz sent me. Excuse me. You're going to quiet down and you can run while you're
with the grip, bro.
You can run if you want, but I am just going to read the donations.
Bro.
Yeah. We could talk about that if you don't run after I'm done reading my donations because they pay my bills. Because remember, I was economically suffering and now I'm not. Because of people paying to watch me make people like you run. He did run for people listening audio only, by the way. But thank you, Jazz, for the $5 on YouTube Super Chat, who says, I was halfway through a BA for fine arts when COVID hit and it ruined my drive so hard that I ended up dropping out. You know what? I kind of did the same thing. I finished with a 4.0 with a 2-year degree. The only reason I was a high school teacher is because I worked at a private school and they believed in me because I'm a fucking good educator. But yeah, my formal education was also cut short by COVID. So I've got kind of a weird one. I don't actually have a 4-year degree. People expect I usually do because I'm a teacher, but not how it worked out for me. Cordova, he beat you to it. He says, don't know if you do kick funds, but here's a pre-buy if you do. I wish the world, the caller denies on him for at least doing long enough to learn sympathy. Sorry, I think I misread that. But I think you're wishing upon him the sort of suffering he thinks doesn't exist. Well, if he doesn't think that anybody in this country is suffering, I hope that if we measure everybody's happiness in this country, he ends up at the bottom of the list. And I hope that when he's on the bottom of that list, he thinks he's not suffering. I think that would be a pretty insufferable place to be at the bottom of that list. And I am going to thank some other people over on Venmo because Corey sent me $5. Did I already read Corey's? I'm so bad at this. He said just a little bit from some side hustle, but from Corey, aka Colobolo. Thank you very much, Corey. I appreciate you very much. David sent another $5 to add. He said, GigaBrain, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, can shut the ever-loving fuck up about genuine or otherwise not genuine, unhoused people. We all don't have daddy to bail us out. Yeah, the fact that he said he's never chosen between necessary bills, demonstrates that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He thinks that nobody suffers. That's fucking crazy. Ashley sent me $2 on Venmo to say, I'm currently living without water in my home because I had to choose between bills, which led me to live without food stamps because it's going to water I can't even drink because it's being used for several other things. I have health issues too. Thank Oskar for standing up. What the fuck, Ashley? Why are you sending me money? Don't send me money, Ashley. Hold on. I need to send Ashley money. More details. How do I... What's her tag? I don't want to refund it. It's $2. I want to send her $50. Sorry. I'm going to do this. More details. Sure. Okay. Ashley ran. There it is. Ashley. Just going to put help. I'm going to put pay. And I'm going to call this one public so people can see it. I'm going to send $50 to Ashley. Stop sending me money, Ashley. You're struggling, not me. Thank you, though. I appreciate you, but I wish you the best. Tori sent me $10 on Cash App to say, maybe you can buy this guy some knee pads for $10. Yes, yeah, I appreciate you, Tori. That's very kind of you. Okay, where was I? Do we have any callers? No. 11:30, maybe it's friendly time. Sorry, that's distracting. Yeah. Don't send me money if you're struggling. Like, there's a lot of people who love what I'm doing and value it so much that because they're not able to contribute to fighting the good fight in their lives, they don't have the skill sets, or they don't know where to start, or they're just not connected in that sort of way. Like, they'll send me, like, some people send me a lot of money. Some people send me, some of these regular donors are sending me, like, you know, couple $100 a week. I've gotten donations that big from just one random person who decided to randomly Venmo me like a couple $100 or something. And if you're in a position where you can look at your life and see that you're privileged enough, but maybe too busy to go, like, you know, protest or fight the good fight, then you can just send Oskar some money. And if you think that's a good use of your money for fighting the good fight, I appreciate that you recognize what I'm trying to do is good. You recognize that I'm like a good place for your money to be, that I'm going to spend it on things that are like good for the fight or whatever. That's great. And I appreciate that you should maybe be able to spend $2 on a streamer if you want them to say something. That's a little bit of entertainment. I'm not saying that somebody who's struggling can't have a minuscule entertainment budget. I'm just not going to feel good taking your money. Not at all. So yeah, do not send me money if you're choosing between bills. I mean it. Anyway, I'm very distracted now. That was like made me a little sad. Anyway, previous caller made me a little sad. Holy shit. What a jerk. like so proud of not valuing the suffering of people who are less advantaged. Cronus is sending lots of gifts on YouTube chat. I'm going to get it right today. Danielle, not Daniel, sent floating heart. Thank you. I appreciate you. Geekman's back up. Maybe it's friendly time. What's up, Jay?
Hey, I just want to come in and mention to that other guest when he said that there is no suffering. I do wrestling in the state of Texas, and when I went to state, there was some schools that got less money than us because of the district they live in, because their house property are not high. So their school funding, their school gets less money, less equipment, and they overall perform less.
Well,
I'm lucky enough to live in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, we're yapping over each other. But my whole thing is that, like, that guy's primary argument is that compared to a couple hundred years ago, nobody's suffering, which there's something to be said for. Like, it's reasonably, like, sensible to point out that, like, life on average is way better right now. But it's still just not even true, because, like, if you get cancer, like, we're not that good at dealing with cancer yet. We're doing way better, but you might still die a horrible, miserable, agonizing death, or like go bankrupt, or like all these horrible things that can happen. And we could pick a person from the past, from a couple hundred years ago, who was like, you know, shitting in a gold pot and eating off a silver platter, and like, yeah, okay, maybe they were still worried about smallpox and stuff like that, and they didn't have good medicine. But like, there were people who lived privileged lives 100 years ago who lived more privileged lives than even somebody like, well, maybe not me. I'm kind of doing all right, like I said. But like a poor person who's homeless in this country, no, a wealthy person from 100 years ago was living a better life. It's this equity gap. There's this big overlap, and it's just so upsetting that so many people don't. Yeah, I don't know. It's upsetting.
Exactly.
It's the most heartbreaking thing that happens on this show is people just not accepting that people suffering is a cost worth considering.
Yeah, and I don't think he understands suffering's not just not having food for the day. Suffering could be you wanting to do a sport in your school, but your school, the housing, they don't get much city funding or public funding. They can't have these crazy different sports. I had lacrosse, golf, soccer, men's and females. I was able to have a blast of both men and females when it coming to this. Other people are not, which that is a suffer because you miss out on an important part of a childhood.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good arguments for. Again, it's just like, how do you even talk to somebody who denies that suffering exists in this country? That's bizarre. I gotta wonder, like what if mommy and daddy cut him off and he got sick or something and he became poor. If he ended up homeless because he got sick and bankrupt and couldn't care for himself, like what would he have to say for himself when he was sleeping on a park bench? Like, would he say that he's not suffering because the scraps from the local Dunkin' Donuts dumpster are tastier than the food that middle class people were eating 200 years ago? Like, he doesn't understand fucking hedonic satiation. Yeah. He doesn't understand the fact that even though we have that sliding scale, the people at the bottom still do suffer, and they suffer more the wider the gap between them and those at the top is. For reasons of fairness that we humans really value, and that's why we create systems of public welfare like the fucking government. It's
exactly like I can say I'm not suffering because I'm homeless, but I'm sleeping on the paved sidewalk because people 100 years ago didn't have paved sidewalks, so they had to sleep on hard dirt ground. So I'm not suffering today.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna read a couple more donations. You can stay or go, Jay, because oh God! What Jazz sent $5 on YouTube super chat to say Chud Brain called you performative when you talked about homelessness, and then you proved him dead fucking wrong. W Oscar, you're the goat. Yeah, no, we don't. Well, I was gonna say we don't need to put all that much attention on, but Tavi sent me my $50 back on YouTube super chat. So he said, "Sending good karma. We need more sensible people. Love you, man. Love you too, Tavi. Tavi's been watching since like the YouTube VODs were getting like 7 views like 3 months ago. He's like one of the first members over on YouTube.
An OG.
Yeah. And Kronos sent another $5 to say, here's some more. I'm making good enough money to spend it on worthwhile things like you, Raven and Jesse. Raven and Jesse are the staff, so who are paid to work on the show for me. So Kronos with a K, Jesse and Raven deserve some W's in the chat. And Zeppi, I think I'm remembering how to pronounce that correctly, sent me $7 on YouTube super chat to say, W Oscar, I forgive you for misspelling my name. It is with a K. But yeah, what the heck? I think I'm gonna move on to some other callers. Jay, thanks for hopping up.
Of course, draw me for the algorithm.
Goodbye. We've got some friends. Jason Johnson, though, maybe we get another debate in today. We got 20 minutes. Maybe it'll get hectic again. Let's have a look. Let's see if he cares about suffering, cares about children, cares about people's hunger, that sort of thing. No, he didn't connect. But we do have a friendly. We have Chairmare. I can never remember if I'm pronouncing that name correctly because I'm always so bad at remembering the username pronunciations. Hello, Chairmare.
Oh, it doesn't matter. How you doing, man?
I'm in a sad mood. Today's episode has made me sad. The guests made me sad.
Yeah, it was interesting crop today. That one guy with a lump of labor, that's normally used to dispel immigration myths because more immigrants means more jobs, not fixed jobs.
Yeah, and that's something that I argue for on the show. He brought it up because I was suggesting that capitalism is probably bad for the chances of first-time home buyers. Couldn't make the connection.
I'll be honest, I think he was trolling, but that's a whole other thing.
I'm on the edge with that with the Phil Bros because I genuinely think that they think they've figured something out about regurgitating these philosophical terms that ChatGPT gives them, and I think it is effective on lots of debate hosts. So I think I don't know. I'm kind of check and let me know. I think that guy thought he was cooking, is what I thought was happening, and he just didn't like that I was holding his feet to the fire about the fact that he didn't understand the arguments that he was giving me because ChatGPT gave them to him, and he didn't have any of the background knowledge that would actually make him capable of articulating why what he was saying was reasonable. Because I don't think what he said was reasonable. But I'm with you.
There was a break in his tone when you called him out.
That's it. I think part of the reason I'm good at navigating the conversation and deciding when to really flip on the guest is I can hear in the tone of their voice when they know that they're wrong. So I'm using my social skills to change then how I navigate the conversation. Because if I'm talking to somebody who still thinks that they're right, I have a very different strategy that I will employ than if I'm talking to somebody who has figured out that they are wrong, but is unwilling to admit it and is trying to save face. Now we're in disingenuous land, and I really change the tone. So I think very actively about that, about the disingenuous flip that happens when somebody realizes that I'm the one making sense. I listen for it on the call.
Well, I have one question for you with one of these more ethereal Philbro concepts. I've struggled trying to put words to it. You know, the idea that economics is not a zero-sum game, which is fundamentally true as an entire system. But what do you think about the idea that as soon as you apply a timeline, if you say economics over a year, economics over a day, doesn't it become zero-sum?
Well, just to give some background to people watching, the idea of a zero-sum game is where if you have like agents in a system where one agent getting a point is necessarily a point taken away from the opposite. And this is how things like sports work. If you're watching a soccer game, it doesn't actually like... We could score it differently. We could say that if you score a goal, you get a point. We could also take a point away from the other audience. The idea is like every time that one team got a point, the other team had to watch the other team score. They value those things equally, one of them positively, one of them negatively. If we sum the two, we get zero. So the idea is that within the system, there's a zero sum. And a zero sum game is one that reaps competition, because in order to get a positive score, somebody has to get a negative score in that sense of value. And that's, because in terms of who's winning the soccer game, we don't look at the absolute scores. We look at the difference. If somebody's ahead by 2 points, that means that somebody's behind by 2 points, zero sum. Money, if we don't introduce money into the system, if we don't print money, if we don't destroy money, money is necessarily zero sum because it just gets passed around, right? You either have the money or you don't. If you give it to me, you lose money, I gain money. That's zero sum. But I think that where it gets a little nebulous philosophically is if we ask the question, what do you do with the money? Because we can say that money is necessarily zero sum with the exceptions of the occasional introduced money by the government or destroyed money by the government or lost money or whatever other things might happen, or leaving the system by being sent to other countries. If you're looking at economics within the country as a system, like there are exceptions to it. But in a broad sense, it's zero sum. Just in a day-to-day, I have $20, I gave it to you to do some work for me. I lost $20, you gained $20. But if we talk about the labor that you had to do, which you wouldn't have done for free, that's some kind of suffering. And then maybe the stuff I would have bought with the money, then it stops being zero sum, because we have to participate in the system in a way that works for our local perspective. But it might not be zero sum in terms of how much your life sucks because I made you work versus how much my life sucks because what I can't afford to make you do that work. So we can't measure things that precisely and absolutely when it comes to things like the food we buy, the cars we drive, the lives we live. So it stops being zero sum the moment you do that. I don't think you need the time domain for that to happen, personally.
Well, and are you familiar with the metric velocity of money?
Ooh, that's an old one. Let's Google it and see if it'll... when I say old one, I mean one I don't think I've thought about since I was the economic tutor at my college.
Simply, it's just like the speed at which a single dollar might transfer between people.
Sure, yeah. That would probably be related to
when you see wealth hoarding, it lowers velocity of money because they're holding on to it. They're not spending it at McDonald's that then gets used to pay some guy's bills that gets used to pay a paycheck at the power company.
Hello there, Proletariat. I don't think I've had you up before, but it says we're friends, so I must have followed you from a live stream or something.
You and I talked over at Jess's once upon a time.
Sounds right. Yeah, I just saw you had a word in edgewise in the chat, and we're kind of doing friendly time for the last 15 minutes here, so I figured I'd bring you up.
Sure. I actually wanted to clarify why the entire him harping on the true homeless versus housing insecure is a distinction without relevance, because it's literally my job. I work for DHS, HS, and social.
Let's hear it. Lovely, because I didn't have the clapback. I knew it was bullshit, but I didn't have the data to stand on.
Yeah, so it's a distinction without relevance, because at DHHS, he's right. We do include housing insecure people in the homeless metric, but that's because DHHS defines somebody that's homeless as anybody that doesn't have a stable place to live. They could be them living on the street. That could be you're crashing on your buddy's couch, but you don't know if you're going to be there next week. That could be your car. And the reason we actually use such a floating definition for it is it gives us a lot of latitude on how to help people. So like I have successfully argued that, for example, a client's car payment met the criteria for a housing cost to get them the housing cost offset because they were living in the car. Therefore, the car payment becomes the stand-in for a rental cost, right? So like when we're trying to be like, oh, there's not that many homeless people, when we only want to talk about true homeless, it's a distinction without relevance that even the government recognizes as a distinction without relevance, because all it means is your housing is unstable.
Well, and I would also, like, that all makes perfect sense, and thank you so much for the clarity. I can see the chats lighting up with the W's for you. But furthermore, I brought up the cohort of people who are determined as unhoused as an example of people who I think are suffering, because it was a counter-argument against him suggesting that 0 people in America are suffering. So again, when you say distinction without relevance, I'm saying none of this shit is relevant. If that caller didn't know whose couch he was going to sleep on tonight, he would by his own definition not be homeless, but I'd say he was suffering. And that's the argument I was trying to make.
Correct, because like the reason it's so important for us to have that broad is not just for that policy. It's because it attaches to a lot of policy. What a lot of people don't realize about SNAP as a program is SNAP winds up being like the skeleton key for a half dozen other programs. Like there's a lot of programs that help people that put you to the top of the list or auto approve you if you have SNAP as a gateway. School lunches is a great example. Like if you're a child with SNAP, you're automatically free school lunch approved. At least in Pennsylvania, your mileage may vary based on the state. That's why I run an entire organization where I help people navigate social programs nationally. But for a lot of nonprofits, a lot of third-party agencies, for a lot of state programs, SNAP winds up becoming the skeleton key that unlocks all of them. That's why when it comes to SNAP, we do keep some policies, like what we define as homeless, a little loose, because making them super tight would inhibit that person's ability to get the other help they need.
I appreciate the work you do, and I appreciate your expertise. It's a fucking shame that so many people I'm guessing that guy would think that your entire mission in life is fucking nonsense, which is a shame.
Absolutely,
because you're out here you're doing great work. I'm
not even using my degree. My actual degree is I have a master's in political science. With a minor in marketing. I worked in the corporate world for a while, got burnt out, got tired of selling products that didn't matter for companies that didn't care about me, became a civil servant instead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, civil servant is a position of service, and I don't know. You get it. I mean, I would argue that like you probably are using your degree, right? Like if you're gonna be a person who helps with those sorts of programs, it's beneficial to the people you serve that you have a sensible worldview about this sort of stuff. So I'd rather you have a degree in political science than something completely unrelated, like sports nutrition or something, which is a field I value. I have no problem with that sort of education, but I wouldn't say you're not using your degree. I call that relevant.
It will become more useful if I shift if I take the next step in my civil service career that I'm planning, which is I plan on shifting into policy analysis for the state. Well, and then my degree becomes like super useful again.
Well, yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's all adding up to a person who's trying to do some pretty serious good for the world. So I will defend it. I think you are using your degree because it gave you the noodle you got, and you're using it to do good for people.
And the thing I see on this app all the time is and something I like to talk about is that the average person's interaction with the political process is the voting booth, and that's it. They don't have to have interact with it against. Why it makes it very easy for them to look down on programs like SNAP, look down on the homeless, look down on minorities and disenfranchised people, because they don't have to interact with those communities every day. Like I live in a sanctuary city, right? I'm the son of a trans single mom, right? I've never had any opportunity to not interact with the communities that they treat as boogeyman, because that was just my life. And then my current job means every day I deal with the downstream effect of every policy. When HR 1 changed, I was the one that saw the full out. If you recall last year, February, March, the president did a weird EO about Medicaid that caused everybody to panic. Medicaid went down for like a month to 2 months in certain states. Like the portal was just gone because it got flooded and crashed. I actually had to file 2 unaliving certificates because 2 of my clients were unable to have their Medicaid claim processed in that time, which means their dialysis appointments were canceled because nobody was there to pay for it, which caused 2 clients to unalive because of a badly worded executive order. So like I don't have the luxury of having politics and policy at arm's reach because I see the downstream effects of it every day for work.
Yeah, that's fucking devastating. I mean, and people constantly undermine the fact that the president can kill people with the stroke of a pen. And that's, when people talk about how like words aren't violent or whatever, I have a hard time with that when it's so obvious that we can correlate deaths to the actions of politicians. And that's something the leftists are mad at the Democrats for, which I think is worth discussing. But we're just not going to fucking get there unless we can get people to be more fucking compassionate, for fuck's sake. Sorry for having such a crass perspective on it, but like, for fuck's sake, dude. We got to Go ahead.
People don't realize how these programs also benefit us. So like, this is where your econ tutor is going to enjoy this. I always explain that SNAP also helps people not on SNAP because it impacts how much money a store makes. So if a store makes 40% off of its revenue off of SNAP dollars, and you were to remove those SNAP dollars tomorrow, they would have two options: close down because no business can afford to lose 40% of their revenue and stay open, or they would have to pass those price increases on to everybody else. Which means SNAP itself acts as a stabilizing impact on inflation because it keeps those prices down. For everybody that's not on SNAP.
Well, and not to mention like the more longitudinal effects of the fact that like SNAP benefits feed so many children, and then those children learn better and get to go live better lives because they weren't hungry when they were young. Or even just the more short-sighted benefit of the fact that some of the more serious property crimes that people commit against individuals are violent crimes that are linked to property crimes, things like robbing a convenience store with a firearm. Maybe that guy wouldn't have robbed that convenience store if he had food stamps. I think about that a lot. Like social programs deter a lot of crime because people commit certain types of crimes when they're desperate. And if we can quell desperation in society, we'll spend much less time worrying about individuals committing crimes against each other out on the street. And that's what we've seen throughout history, which is why the previous caller was right about a couple things, like about how society is just getting better on average. That just doesn't mean that there aren't people suffering, and it doesn't mean that we're not having regression in terms of equity or equality. But people don't weigh those things enough.
I missed it. Did you say you were federal HHS or state HHS?
Pennsylvania. I'm in Pennsylvania. I just also run an organization where I help people navigate those programs nationally. So I have spent way too much time reading every single state's social programs policy because, like I said, people will just roll into my server and they're like, "Hey, I got denied for SNAP in Minnesota," and suddenly I'm pouring through Minnesota's policy books because federal sets a standard for these programs, but states can like shift the policies a little here and there. So because I speak the language, I will pull up any state's policy book to figure out how to get somebody fed.
Gotcha. I was just going to say I was worried if after last week's SCOTUS decision, you might want to keep your head down if you were federal. The Slaughter case, you guys follow that
one? Which one was that? The Slaughter, the name
it's
on
the one
it?
that Trump v. Slaughter brought back spoil system, basically.
Oh, yeah, I'm less educated on that than on the other ones. Educate me.
It just says he can fire department heads at will, and department heads can fire sub-employees, so then it gets rid of a lot of the protection.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I do know a little bit about that one. The concerning thing about that one is that there are a lot of levers of control that Trump has that are dependent on him having appointed people who are responsible for certain things. So we can say the FCC is going after Jimmy Kimmel and go, well, yes, at Trump's instruction. So if he's allowed to just fire people who don't obey him, that gives him more control of that sort. And those are more ways that he can go around violating people's constitutional liberties. Instead of through legislation or executive order by instructing Congress to do his will, he can just fire some people, direct control if they don't obey him. And that should be fucking concerning to people.
Yeah, the silver lining is that employment like that is self-immolating. The downside is it takes too long. Yeah.
I mean, Trump is doing a lot of unstable things in the country that he's not going to be around to see the consequences of because he's 80 and in poor health. So I think that's true in a lot of cases.
Well, and just to bring it back to what you guys were saying, it's frustrating that it's the same people who will constantly say they want a businessman president who ignore things like rate of return on SNAP and education funding and all of these bills. Make up their damn minds. Like, if you want a businessman, good business is investing on things that return your money.
Yeah, and then Trump also just isn't a good businessman. He's a crook.
Oh, yeah, no.
Like, all of his legitimate business operations have resulted in bankruptcies, and then all of the ones that haven't have involved massive corruptions, or massive amounts of corruption, or crimes against women and children. So...
And the guy literally can't sell water.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. Trump, I mean... I don't know. I guess I'm just in a mood today. I'm kind of at a loss for words. This is one of those days where, like, instead of the nuanced argument, I'm just like, the guy bragged about having the tallest building in New York after 9/11 because it knocked down the taller one.
Yeah.
The man said last week that communism caused both World War I, which occurred before communism existed, and 9/11.
Yeah, have you ever tried to look into where this whole windmills giving whales or killing whales thing is?
Okay, I understood that the chuds believe that windmills cause cancer. Whales?
Oh yeah, no, he's been saying for a while now.
He said they beat whales
for years. It kills whales. And when he first started saying this, I tried to figure out like what random, alt-right podcast did he hear this on? The only thing I could find anywhere on the internet was a study that talked about the maleffects of these specific windmills in the country of Wales on the citizens there.
Oh my fucking God.
And I think someone might have said that to him and he went, oh yeah, they're killing whales. Okay.
As somebody, and I say this every now and then, as somebody that served under W, as somebody whose friends were unalived on a lie under W, as somebody who spent time overseas on some bullshit under W, we are at a point now where I miss that man because that man did that man did some horrible things. I have friends that I visit on Memorial Day in the graveyard because of him. I wish him all the worst things in life, but I also miss that the worst thing I had to worry about president saying was, now watch me hit this drive.
W was incompetent, and if someone had offered him control of the Texas Rangers, he would have abdicated the presidency, but at least he cared. He was an idiot, but he cared.
I think in the way that I mean patriot, George Bush was a patriot. I disagree with him about a lot, obviously, and I wish we could go back to a time where the sorts of ways in which me and George W. Bush disagreed are the important things in politics. But in the modern political perspective, me and the guy are on the same team, to go back and tell that to a younger version of myself, hey, someday in the American political sphere, you're going to consider yourself on the same team as the likes of George W. Bush. I will think, what on the fuck? How? And then if I said, well, Donald Trump becomes president, I'd say, okay, I can, what? But I can see how that makes sense.
If I had a time machine and went back to 2009, I'll toss you around and said to my sitting in the sandbox, hot ass self going, one day you're going to miss this man. I would have fist fought myself.
I mean, imagine going back and being like Biden or Trump's going to win and that, he's going to defeat Hillary. And then Biden's going to defeat Trump, and then Trump is going to win again and be president as an 80-year-old after Biden was president as an 80-year-old. I'd be like, no, that's not the path forward I would bet on. That's fucking insanity. But that's why we're living in fucking insanity times, and that's why I started running the show. I'm doing what I can. I miss the
days of all-night political debates with someone on the other side that made sense.
If we have a Trump supporter who makes sense, I will give them the floor, but I haven't found one yet.
I've hit the point where when I talk to opposition, I look at them, I'm like, here, I'm going to make a deal for you. Before I pull this up, one simple request. If I show you the raw data, if I show you the actual primary source data, will it change your mind? And if they say no, I'm like, then there's no conversation to be had, because why would I do the labor for you if it's not going to accomplish anything?
Yeah, I mean, I've told people that ICE violate constitutional liberties, and then I was listening back to a recent episode where I was editing some clips, and I missed a moment to call a guy on this because I said, I have footage that I have filmed myself on my profile. You can scroll and find video of ICE agents violating people's civil liberties. And then he says, well, I'm sure there's more to that story. And I missed the opportunity to say, you don't even know the evidence that I have. You don't even know the content of the video I'm talking about. I didn't even talk about which constitutional liberty was being violated, how they violated it. I didn't tell you anything. And you are just already asserting that there's context that I'm going to be unwilling to show you that explains away whatever it is I can show you. And that's just fucking disingenuous. That is just starting from a place of knowing Trump is right, ICE is good, whatever the argument is, and then just looking at everything through a lens of how can I make this make sense? And that's what they do when they ask ChatGPT to make things make sense for them. They don't say, is this evidence in accordance with their belief? They say, how can I explain this evidence in a way that backs up my belief? And ChatGPT gives it a fucking try, which it shouldn't, but it does. On that note, unless you guys have anything else you want to throw in quick, I am going to boot you and do the outro.
No, if it's all right, can I tell people where to find the thing that helps help people find social programs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, please.
Yeah, so if you're listening right now, and this goes out to everybody, even if you're hate watching Oscar, pay attention to what the URL is, because that should tell you my view on things. needhasnoparty.org. If you are like, hey, I don't know how I'm going to feed my family. Hey, I don't know, I'm having problems getting Medicaid. Hey, I'm having problems finding the help I need in my community. Needhasnoparty.org. You'll find a link to a Discord server on there. It's called The Lighthouse. I run it. Everybody is welcome. The only rule about The Lighthouse is you keep politics out of it, because the job of The Lighthouse is to help people survive. We can't do any mutual aid because I'm a brokey like the rest of you, but I can help you. I can help you navigate social programs. I can help you find the help you need.
Appreciate you. All right, I'll kick you both for the algorithm. Thanks for coming up.
Thanks for having.
Goodbye, friends. And, well, that's the outro of the show, so make sure you're following Oskar Quentin, too, in case this account gets banned. Let's take a look at the donations really quick to see if anything has rolled in. Ooh, did I read these? Oh, see, the balance is all mixed up because I sent somebody $50, so I can't tell how many of these are new. Oh, no. I read Collins. I definitely read Collins. Stay! Listen to the donors. They paid for this. Alex, what did Alex say? Alex said, good show today. That liberal guy sounded very smart and full of shit. Yeah, he put quotes around liberal. I think that I was getting suspicious. I was like, is this just not a person who's liberal, but he wanted to get his foot in the door to like try to sound like he was on my team? That sounded very disingenuous to me. Samantha sent me $5 to say the reason I'm into politics is at all is because my boyfriend was on dialysis for 4 years. Now he doesn't have insurance because of this administration. Yeah, lots of bad shit happening in that way. Fucking sorry to hear that. People are suffering. Caitlin sent me $10 to say, as a veterinary field person, our field is a perfect example of how costs are rising to where people can't afford their pets' care, and that wages of the vet staff aren't rising to the point where we're able to afford vet care either. Yeah, you know what? That was something I have a friend who's going through that fucking this week, an expensive surprise Betville, and that's fucking shitty. Cassandra sent me $1 to say I had to choose health insurance or rent. Fuck Donald Trump. Yeah. I mean, I think that was when we were doing the donations earlier about that, because people are choosing between necessary things, and the privileged caller who thought that no Americans are suffering just is not somebody who has been through that, is what I assume is going on there. Let me just hop over to Gmail to make sure I get everybody for the day. But while I do that, I will remind everybody that if you want to support the show, you can go to the link tree in the bio and follow me on all the other platforms. That doesn't cost a dime, and it helps out immensely. And you can get in the Discord as well if you want to help out there. If you do have a dime that you want to spare, you can send it to my Venmo, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, or Patreon, and then I can pay my employees. I can go to California for that cool project that some people know about potentially happening. I can maybe hit the East Coast. I was hoping to get to Delaney or DC or something, but, got to be financially reasonable. Can't jump the gun on that stuff, but trying to do cool stuff with the donations. It isn't just going entirely into my pocket, because for now, show's paying my bills. I'm comfortable with that, so I'm just trying to do good, because that's why I'm doing this. I want to close. We were talking about this earlier. Some people don't know what they're good at in this, and they have money in their wallet, so they send it to me, and that's the way that they contribute. I was chasing ice around and blowing whistles and doing some mutual aid stuff, and along the way, I spent some free time starting up doing these live streams in February. And I've discovered that I'm way better at doing this than at delivering food or chasing ICE agents around or whatever. This is my superpower. So if you want to do good for the world, find your superpower and make use of it to make fewer people suffer. And maybe your superpower is making money. So you send it to people like me or mutual aid networks or charities, and that's great. That's wonderful. Maybe it's helping out on the Discord. Maybe it's helping out on somebody else's Discord. Maybe it's just having conversations with people in your life. But I believe sitting in this chair that this is the thing I'm good at. This is I have figured out the thing that I can do that'll make the most difference, and that's why it's so fucking exciting that people are contributing in a way that give me more power to do cool stuff, like go on these trips and do more reporting and do the Sunday evening show and stuff like that. 7 p.m. Central Time evening show, special guests. Members only stream after that if you're into that stuff. It's exciting that I have like politicians. Thank you for the money gun, Chris. Appreciate it. And Jazz sent me $2 on YouTube Super Chat to say he bankrupted a casino. How do you even do that? Good fucking question. Probably through corruption. Kronos sent me $2 to say WMods team and everyone have a great day. Yeah. Don't donate if you're broke. Seriously. But I'm just excited that I found the thing that I think is the right thing for me to be doing to help out during these times. The Chosen One says, liberals staying at home and streaming. Call in, dude. Goodbye, TikTok. See you tomorrow, 10 Central Time. And goodbye, YouTube.